Best Ball Breakfast is loading 4 straight hours of Best Ball Mania drafts here on the Pete Overs at YouTube channel. I'll kick things off with a solo draft. Then we're going to have guest Mark Dank from ETR. He's been the man behind the projections. He's doing the projections pod with Jack Miller and Ben Gretsch this year. He's going to be subbing in for Adam Levitan today. We will, of course, have Sam Sherman, the defending BBM champ, on at noon. And then, as always, my trusty sidekick, Mr. Pat Kerrane, and his sidekick joining us around 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Pete. This is Best Ball Breakfast. Let's do it.
Welcome to hot Best Ball summer. You slurp that suspension dipperino, honey?
Easy to click on Rashad White when it's all site credits.
Exodia.
Put the puppy in the bag, bro. Try to grow the goddamn game.
The game is beatable, folks.
Slap King Summer, bitches.
7,000 hours of commercial-free Best Ball drafts starts now.
GMs, how are we doing? Everybody, what is up? Nick, Smooth Criminal Goods, Greg with the what up? GM to you, Josh, to Steven. Greg is loading up the Nitro Cold Brew and gearing up from some hot yoga. Dude, that sounds like my kind of morning right there. I did have some cold brew already, but of course, I have my trusty pot of coffee here. So let's get this rolling here on Best Ball Breakfast, the first of a few coffee pours today. There we go. Ready to rock now that we get the coffee going. What's up, Chris? Groovy Greg, excited for the pour. Best part of waking up is a BB coffee pour in your cup. That's right, Folgers. We're coming for your slogan, for your jingle. What's up, Lizzie? Is this a Vancouver Grizzlies jersey? It is an homage to that. This is my friends, the No Dunks crew, Jay Skeets, Trey Kirby, Taz Mellis, all of those guys over there. They did a limited edition run. So yeah, I had to grab one of these when those came out. Love the old school Grizzly uniform. What is up, Ryan? How are we doing here? Jake, always encouraging me to draft my running backs early. I'll see what I can do for you today, Jake. What's up, Purple Yosh? I did see that you were streaming with Chad Candles this morning, the Eliminator defending champ. Love to see it. Davis needs to get back from vacation and start grinding with the rest of us. I know, man. Life of leisure-matic. You know, who knows if he's ever going to return. You know, us real best ball bros continue to grind out here. What's up, Chad? Fantasy Pill. Trusty or sidekick, Coffee Pot or Pat Kerrane? Man, that's a good question. You know, it has to be Kerrane because ultimately my Coffee Pot, it runs empty and there's nothing left in it. But Pat Kerrane, he is eternal. He shows up week after week here. Raylish, GM from the beachside in Brazil. That sounds nice. GMs from Cali. Look at everybody calling in from all over the world today. Best Ball on call says, GM Pete, so you think you can tout best show of the summer? I appreciate that. Hopefully you guys all had the chance to check out the show on Friday that involved guest Davis Maddock helping me judge the final 5 after streaming week. And then it was a bit of a surprise. Obviously, the cat's out of the bag now. Pat Kerrane did join me there at the end to help me make some of my final decisions there. A lot of people who have been fans of this channel, of ship chasing over the years, really enjoyed that episode. It was kind of a change of pace from some of the previous episodes. The contest has certainly changed in the objective as I now am looking to find and pick a collaborator to work with here going forward. So hopefully you guys get to check that out. Enjoy that episode. Really proud of how that turned out. And yes, we are down to the final 3 for So You Think You Can Tout. There is only one more episode, the finale. And in addition to those guys pitching me on their idea of a show to do with me, which will be part of the finale, I'm hosting them on After Dark this week. I actually had Cups on Saturday night. We're going to have Tony Squares will join me on a Wednesday edition of After Dark at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then PPR Tyler will join me Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. And this part I have yet to mention anywhere. So here's the announcement. The randomizer is coming back this Thursday, and we are kicking it off with the 3 touts. So we're going to go back to back to back. I need to check the exact order, but we will have Squares, we'll have Cups, and we will have PPR Tyler all getting thrown into the randomizer gauntlet. PPR Tyler actually did the randomizer last year, so this will be his second time, but first time for Cups and Squares. So that will be another fun element to this kind of finale week here as we also work behind the scenes to pull together this episode. But I think it is time for us to do what we do best around here on Best Ball Breakfast, and that is draft a Best Ball Mania team. Let's get the draft up here and let's get rolling, folks. All right. I tipped you guys off in the Discord. If you guys are in the Best Ball Breakfast channel there, hopefully you get a jump on the crowd to get into one of these drafts. We got the 107 here. 107. Let me go ahead and update my exposures as well. I mean, we are now getting to the point where this is my 88th Best Ball Mania draft, my Des Bryant draft, if you will. There's been a lot of great number 88s over the years. I always think of Demaryius Thomas as well from that same draft class. Rest in peace, Demaryius Thomas. But 88, I think the goated wide receiver number, just aesthetically so appealing on the jersey there in my 88th draft. But let me sync my exposures here. I also need to name this draft. I can't have a team that's not named. This was from last week. I believe it was on 7/16. This was a Fantasy Life draft I did, and I think I had the 0 RB draft we did. Make sure you guys are checking out those shows over on the Fantasy Life channel. I'm now doing 3 shows a week over there, one with a guest, one with someone from the Fantasy Life universe. You know, Dwayne McFarland has been swinging by to go through his tiers. And then on Friday, I draft with Kendall. And this week, today, we're actually recording with Zane. You guys know him from Twitter. He's been absolutely crushing the news and Nuggets beat when it comes to fantasy football. So we're going to go through some training camp news with him. You can find all of that on the Fantasy Life Show YouTube channel. And I am about to pick here at 1-7. We have a pretty familiar start here. The 2 running backs, the 3 wide receivers. We'll see what Chad does here. And then looking at my exposures, I'm at Jonathan Taylor, 10.5%. Amon-Ra is the guy I want to keep boosting here. I'm at only 3.9% Amon-Ra. He is next in ADP here. That was not an intentional fade. That's been kind of just part of the RNG with my draft slot. So we'll continue to click Amon-Ra right there at ADP and maybe even mixing him in a bit more than that just to make sure I'm not grossly underweight on one of the better wide receivers in round 1. Oh no, Paul's tapping in, says he has a 2-year-old screaming on a 2-hour drive. Oh man, I have been there, brother. Can you try a snack? Can you try a snack there? Blast some Miss Rachel, some super simple songs. Might do the job there. Best of luck. GMs, what's up, Garage? I like this comp from Nick as far as this most recent episode. It was as close as we could get to a Meet the Family episode of reality show. Yeah, what is it on The Bachelor when they take them home to meet their family? That's a funny comp. All right, Amon-Ra here. We see all the running backs come off the board, then A.J. Brown. I am on the clock here. Looking at, I have paired Amon-Ra with Derrick Henry 42.9% of the time. I have yet to pair him with Drake London. Let's do that. Let's do an Amon-Ra, Drake London. I'm starting to get more and more comfortable with some of the later running back values on the board. Even in round 4 and 5, I feel like those pockets, especially from the middle part of the board, are now coming into focus. You know, Jacobs, Skattebo, middle of round 4. Although we can talk about the backflip situation. Middle of round 5, you're routinely getting Tootin, Henderson there. So let's start wide receiver, a combo I have not yet done in Best Ball Mania with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Drake London. And as always, you can see here, I'm getting that information about my combinatorial ownership via the Solver's combo tool here. Not only can I see my individual exposures, but I can now click Amon-Ra and see next to him what my pair is specifically with Amon-Ra. And so as I was able to notice, I am often clicking Derrick Henry with him. Let's go ahead and get a share of Drake London. It's just a really nice way to make sure you're not getting funneled to the same combos, you know, unintentionally over and over again. Aaron Kenny, yeah, no, we already covered the jersey. It is not an Abdur Rahim jersey. It is a generic no dunks jersey. No player on this one. Who else would be a good one? Was it Big Man Reeves, Country Reeves? Am I now misremembering his nickname there? Oh, yeah. Jake's always worried about my running back points, and I started with Amon-Ra Drake. I guess I already forgot about my running back points. Sorry, brother. Sorry to hear that. All right. Amon-Ra Drake London here. Chris Olave, Zay Flowers hanging around by ADP. Chris Olave is the faller here. I am light Chris Olave. Kerrane is a guy that I could also take in this range. Let's go ahead and do Kerrane. I do not have a lot of Kerrane, only 5.3%. I want Jake to be able to relax in the chat. I know how he gets a little on edge, a little nervous for me when I don't have a running back here. I kind of don't know what to do with Olave these days. I think he's a solid pick. I do think there's a decent amount of risk that Jordan Tyson is really, really good. And these ADPs almost look silly by the time we get to week 15, 16, 17, when you think of how good Jordan Tyson was as a prospect. Would it not be insane to think that at this time next year, we're drafting Jordan Tyson in the middle of the 3rd round and we're drafting Chris Olave in the 6th round? That's just kind of how I feel in my gut that it's going to play out. And it's not to say that Olave doesn't have a place on teams. I think he's going to be very solid. But man, I just can't shake the specter, the looming figure that is Jordan Tyson hovering over Chris Olave's shoulder every time I see his name there. Travis Etienne is another guy that's now routinely sliding after Kamara restructured his contract. One of those weird elements where we should have known all along probably that Kamara was going to end up staying in New Orleans. It was either that or retiring. And yet the underdog market is always going to double count it. So if we thought it was baked in, it might have been objectively, like thinking about true projections and where ETN should be going. But the market did not bake it in. And now Travis Etienne routinely falling to early round 4. And I'm certainly more open to taking ETN in this range. You know, once a Javante's off the board, I think it starts to become an interesting conversation. Him versus Josh Jacobs, him versus Skattebo. The drafter next to me does grab Jacobs here. Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, Malik Neighbors. Garrett Wilson is who the solver likes. I do have a ton of Garrett Wilson. Let's do Skattebo for the lulz. Let's do a backflip and take Cam Skattebo here. So if you guys missed it over the weekend, he was at Fanatics Fest and attempted another backflip, which is kind of his favorite party trick right now. And he kind of stumbled, had an awkward landing. Everyone gasped. We're all on pins and needles with Cam Skattebo because part of the reason that makes us also scared about Skattebo is just the injury risk. Can this guy take care of his body? I don't think we should be adjusting the ranks because Cam Skattebo enjoys doing backflips, but it is a fun conversation. He might not be the smartest individual, but let me tell you, a lot of these players we draft in fantasy aren't the sharpest tools in the shed. So I'm going to go ahead and cut Cam Skattebo some slack. To me, Cam Skattebo represents one of the few players in a typical dead zone range of the draft that doesn't have a dead zone profile. He does the things that aren't dead zoney. He's really good at the goal line and he catches passes. And so, yes, there's certainly risk there if you want to play the health card, but I do think he's going to do the things for fantasy that we really like. And again, I don't think it would be shocking if Cam Skattebo stays healthy for an entire season that we're drafting him up here where Chase Brown's going, where AJ Brown's going, etc. See, and this is the one conversation whenever it comes to Skattebo, any chance he's healthy all season. I just don't want to be in that game of trying to predict who's going to be healthy, who's not. I think all of these running backs who are going to see a ton of touches are liable to get injured. And so I think it's just being a little too precise to say, I know Cam Skattebo is going to get injured, but Javonte Williams isn't. I know Cam Skattebo is going to get injured, but Josh Jacobs isn't. So I don't know. I'm not personally going to play that game. I understand why there are concerns there, but not for me. So we have Kerrane and Skattebo. We have Amon-Ra and Drake London. This is kind of between like Tootin and Christian Watson for me. I do really like Christian Watson. Let's play Watson here. And we will see if maybe one of these running backs come back. I've been really trying to think through like the differences between Jadarian Price relative to Quinshon Judkins and Tootin. And I put Tootin on the thumbnail today. I feel like he's one of the hottest topics in fantasy right now. I'll certainly talk with him to our guest today. But yeah, I still like Tootin. I think it's a really tricky price right now. And I do think the gap between him and Rodriguez is still pretty crazy. Bashal Tutin, 56.1. Chris Rodriguez, 127.2. A 70 pick gap between these two. And maybe the price is fair for Bashal Tutin, but man, I don't think it's probably right for Rodriguez with everything they're telling us about this being a 1A, 1B type of situation. That's right. 952 Stu says they say the same thing for Watson. Will he stay healthy? Certainly. Yes. I think every single player I draft, we can ask that same question there. Jordan Tyson coming back to me at 65 would have been nice. Oh man, the solver suggesting Parker Washington. I actually drafted Parker Washington on the bash the other day. My guest, Fantasy Pill, encouraged me to draft him. I'm going to go ahead and take Rhamondre Stevenson here. This is a reach ahead of ADP. He's been a guy that I've been wanting to kind of boost my exposure to. I feel like Stevenson's floor is really solid right now. And I actually think the ceiling is pretty high. It feels like it could be a small miss, big hit, especially if we run back essentially the same split that we had last year with Henderson. And all indications, all reporting right now is like, yeah, we're running it back. And if anything, this offense is going to be better this year, more goal line opportunities. I want to be investing in the Patriots offense. And so Stevenson is someone I've been now willing to mix in, specifically in this spot where typically the board gets flat in round 6. I'm not in love with any of the wide receivers. I like Tyson. I like Jane Daniels. I like Jadarian Price in this range. After that, if I don't have a really obvious stack, which I don't with Amon-Ra, Drake London, and Christian Watson, then it's kind of choose your own adventure. And I do prefer Stevenson to Pollard right now. I just think when I look at which one of those offenses do I want to invest in, Rhamondre and the Patriots get the nod for me. Uh-oh, the bye week bros are out. What am I doing with week 11 here? Kerrane, Rhamondre, Drake London, and Christian Watson. Okay. All right. We're officially on bye week alert. Officially on bye week alert. Jake says Rhamondre is the best pick in drafts. Wow. You know, I think I'm getting pretty bullish on Rhamondre. I don't even know if I can go that far. The best pick in drafts. It is hard for a top 70 pick to be the best pick in drafts. I think it's always a little bit easier to find maybe massively mispriced guys later in the draft. But I would be open to putting him in that top 5, top 10 players that I think are undervalued. Whatever happened to the guy who drafted everyone with the same bye week a few years ago? That actually has been a popular strategy in weekly winners. I know people would do that where it's just like, let me take the L on this 1 week and then have a full roster the rest of the week. But typically you're just going to be sacrificing too much value going out of your way to draft players with the same bye week. All right, we're back on the clock here. Solver likes Chuba. This is right at about value for Chuba here. Rank of 68, ADP of 76. We're at pick 79 by week 5. So this is kind of like an interesting build for me in that I still get 3 wide receivers through 5 rounds, but we're back up to 4 running backs. Are you appeased, Jake? Did I get enough running back points for you here? Certainly kind of a weird grouping of running backs as far as my personal tastes and who I generally like drafting. Kyren Williams, Cam Skattebo, Rhamondre Stevenson, and Chuba. And then pair them with Amon-Ra, Drake London, Christian Watson. But with these guys, Stafford, Jackson Dart, obviously Bryce Young late, Jared Goff will not mess with Atlanta right now, Jordan Love. I feel like I have enough late round quarterback options here that we kind of keep stacking running backs and wide receivers and see how this shakes out. Go easy cards. Pete, did you show us your front runner? And so you think you can tout with who was on After Dark? No, because I am doing After Darks with all 3 of the guests. I mentioned that at the top of the show. Cups was on Saturday. Tony Squares is on Wednesday. PPR Tyler is on Friday. I'm doing an After Dark with all 3 of the finalists. Jim says, I'm getting comfortable with some of these later RBs, proceeds to rip through 7. Maybe I misspoke, but these are the running backs I mean. I said literally the round 4 and round 5, 6 running backs. These are the guys that You get Chuba sliding a little bit. I did reach for Rhamondre there, but the Skattebo Price, these are the guys that I like building around in the middle rounds right now, while making sure I have enough offensive firepower up top. Let me try a move here that I've been saying I want to do a little bit more. I keep saying it and then I never do it. Let's do naked Trevor Lawrence. In hindsight, do you go back and put Parker Washington on this team because I end up getting Lawrence? But one of the things we've been talking through with how tricky the prices are for the Jags wide receivers isn't Trevor Lawrence just the big winner here? Isn't Lawrence the guy you want that almost no matter what happens, if there's an injury to Parker Washington, Brian Thomas, or Jacoby Myers, well, guess what? Now you get the second overall pick in the draft, stepping up and playing more time. They add a couple tight ends. They have Bretton Strange. This is a very resilient team in their pass catching core. Trevor Lawrence is set up for massive success this year. And I think I've been ignoring him a little too much from that angle of just being willing to take Trevor Lawrence, even when I don't have one of those first two Jags wide receivers. And if you miss out on Hunter, on Strange, whatever, not a big deal, because you can play Lawrence as a naked quarterback. He's going to rush a bit as well. But yeah, I want to entertain this Lawrence price, 5 picks past ADP, knowing how well positioned he is. And I do think there are scenarios where all of the Jags wide receivers could be small misses at ADP because it is so spread out, because you have the games where the running game's cooking. You have the games where Trevor Lawrence is scoring 2 rushing touchdowns. Like, all of that is within the range here. And I want to make sure that I have some Lawrence. So we could do Jacoby here. J.K. Dobbins sliding a little bit. Let's go ahead and do the Jacoby thing, though. I think the solver likes this. It's just slightly ahead of ADP here, but at only 3 wide receivers with Trevor Lawrence, I think this is the place to build out a bit of the back stack there. And then we can look to tack on either Hunter or Strange potentially. So we now have Trevor Lawrence, Kerrane, Cam Skattebo, Rhamondre, Chuba Hubbard. We have Amon-Ra, Drake London, Christian Watson, Jacoby Myers at wide receiver. Brady Sanders wants to talk Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. I think they're good values late. What am I missing as a Steelers fan? I think when you look at my portfolio, Jeremy Bernard is like my most drafted receiver. I think Aaron Rodgers is last call for a quarterback who should be expected to start 17 games. I think Freiermuth and Darnell Washington are good late picks. Pittman seems fine to me within the Jacoby Myers mold as well. I don't have anything bad to say about the Steelers prices. All right, back on the clock here. This is going to be the Jared Goff selection. A little bit past ADP. Amon-Ra was our first pick. Nothing else here I have to have. We're looking at, Kenny Gainwell, Wan'Dale Robinson. Let's grab Jared Goff here. So now we have skinny stacks with both of our quarterbacks, Lawrence with Myers, Jared Goff with Amon-Ra. Takes on my cheaper, slappier version of Terrence Ferguson, Mitchell Evans. I have not given Mitchell Evans much thought yet. Go AZ Cards. That feels a little bit like peak July drafting boredom to me. I really don't want to be drafting tight ends once Gesicki's off the board. Darnell Washington is kind of like the lone exception there of a guy who's kind of fun to dream on. But man, it really feels like you're just taking a zero messing around like that. Lucas likes this team here. It is a different team for me. Haven't drafted a lot like this with this structure, but getting the 2 quarterbacks in the window, kind of 4 running backs in that dead zone. So it doesn't, feel great. But I think with the profiles of Skattebo and Rhamondre and Kerrane and guys who will catch passes, it doesn't feel quite as gross to me. Amon-Ra, Drake London, Kyren Williams, Cam Skattebo, Christian Watson, Rhamondre Stevenson, Chuba Hubbard, Trevor Lawrence, Jacoby Myers, Jared Goff. Best Ball Breakfast, July 20th, my 88th draft. We'll be joined by Mark Dank after this, Sam Sherman, Pat Kerrane. Lively chat, hanging out. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. The like button always helps. I think last episode we hit 10K views here. Things starting to heat up. Once we get to August, we're really going to be rolling. My plan is to add an additional Best Ball Breakfast each week in August. The plan will be to add those on Wednesdays. I don't think I will have a set lineup for those shows, but I'll be bringing on some guests, some people that I haven't been able to draft with yet this summer. So stay tuned for that. Way more best ball streaming and drafts coming your guys' way in August. 11.7, the next pick on tap. 2 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 4 wide receivers here. I'm going to go ahead and grab Aaron Jones here. Aaron Jones, my rank 120, ADP 120. We're sitting here at pick 127. Let's go ahead and grab Aaron Jones. Kyren Williams, Cam Skattebo, Rhamondre, Chuba, Aaron Jones. We'll play a little fast and loose with tight end. I certainly could have justified grabbing my first tight end there, Goddard, Ferguson. But maybe we get 4 tight end curious on this team. Although I don't think it's curious anymore. I think the fact that I've done it a few times, I might just be 4 tight end open-minded. On the right builds, it certainly makes sense. Jay can't wait for the annual Bime 4 app. Yes, for sure. He's exactly one of the guests that I will book. We always try to book it around the same time that we did draft that team that finished top 10 in Best Ball Mania 2. I got to go check the date. I think it's like an August 12th, August 13th, in that range. So yeah, we'll get Bime 4 on and try to recapture that BBM magic like we do every year. Oh man, are they going to make me draft Isaiah Likely? Bretton Strange also makes too much sense. Although it's a little bit of a reach on Strange, it is interesting to kind of think through the correlation here versus the ranks in ADP. McMillan goes. Let me just make sure. So I do have Skattebo. I just think, man, let's go Hunter. I want to build the cheap version of the Lawrence backstack. And this kind of gives us the second correlated piece, takes a little pressure off if Strange doesn't come back. And we will keep pushing tight end here. So we have the 2 quarterbacks, the 5 running backs, the 5 wide receivers, 0 tight ends through 12 rounds. We'll see if this burns me, but I think I can still catch up at tight end. And it just felt like a little bit of a weird spot to pull up Strange there. Likely still on the board. Chig still on the board. There is a tier break at wide receiver for me here. Once Cooper, once Hunter are off, you see here, then we're down right into that Naylor, Jennings, Trey Tucker. Like for me, when you get to pick 150 here after Omar Cooper's off the board, like all of these guys are the same. Like I have a hard time differentiating Jalen Naylor from some of the 18th round selections. So let's go ahead and get a correlated 5th wide receiver here. Tiki Toe says Aaron Jones is going to get Wally pipped by Claiborne. It could happen, man. That's one spot. I mean, we've kind of talked about it on these shows, various places, Ship Chasing, Best Ball Breakfast. There's going to be one of these rookies that makes some noise at camp. I don't know if it's Katron Allen. I don't know if it's Damon Claiborne. I don't know if it's Nicholas Singleton. I don't know if it's Emmett Johnson. I don't know who it's going to be, but there is going to be a riser, a la what we saw from Jaden Blue last year. We will start to get excited about one of these backs, and typically it is one of the backs that are in an ambiguous backfield, like Washington, like Minnesota. So I definitely think there's room for some surprises in those backfields, but I want to keep taking stabs on these Vikings backs because the price is really nice on both Mason and Aaron Jones. And this is the spot I'll get a guy like Jones. My RB5, 7 picks past ADP. And now I do feel good that I waited on tight end here. Hunter Henry, Bretton Strange is here. I do prefer Strange. Henry's not a bad consolation prize, though. Chad goes with Denzel Boston. So I will go ahead and lock up my cheap version of the Trevor Lawrence stack. And this is like, I said I was open to the, fully naked Lawrence, but this is how my preferred way to play the Jags. Avoid the most expensive pieces. Brian Thomas, Parker Washington. I think there's a lot of fragility there. Backstack it with 3 stacking partners all going after pick 100. Your margin for error, your moat to being right at pick 103 with Myers, pick 138 with Hunter, pick 151 with Strange. It's just so much wider than it is investing those early 6th round picks in the other guys. knowing how many different ways this could play out. So I like this team. I like getting the Trevor Lawrence backstack version. I have not pulled off one of these like this in Best Ball Mania yet. All right, on the clock here, Lawrence Goff, probably going to rock a 2-quarterback build here. We could be looking at our second tight end. It is probably TJ Hawkinson. Solver likes Hawkinson. I do have the Aaron Jones pairing here. If I don't take Hawkinson there and the next guy available is like a Schultz, a Barner, a Dulcich, I am probably forced into a 4 tight end build. Not that that's the end of the world, but Hawkinson at least gives me the flexibility to probably roll with 3 if I want to. And so now through 14 rounds, Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, Kyren Williams, Cam Skattebo, Rhamondre Stevenson, Chuba Hubbard, Aaron Jones, Amon-Ra, Drake London, Christian Watson, Jacoby Myers, Travis Hunter, Brenton Strange, TJ Hawkinson. Don't mind it. Don't mind it. I will not be drafting LaQuint Allen. I will not be drafting LaQuint Allen, but I will say this. LaQuint Allen could certainly be a fly in the ointment for both Chris Rodriguez and Bashal Tutin. Like, that could be the ultimate buzzkill if LaQuint Allen has a big pass catching role. I was listening to Ben Gretsch talk about it. It was either on Stealing Signals or on the Projections pod with the ETR crew. And he was saying that he thinks LaQuint Allen is just going to be in the long down and distance situations, you know, when they're in 3rd and 16, and not on the field a ton in other 3rd down scenarios, which would make him less of an issue, I think, to Rodriguez and Tutin both being able to pay off at cost. But if he is like the full-blown 3rd down back and those guys are getting yanked off the field in a lot of those situations that aren't just long down and distance, then it could be an issue. UCP, are you maxing the eliminator? And if so, how are you attacking those drafts? Yes, I am. I'm in slow drafts. I've been adding about 30 slow drafts a week to make sure I can max the eliminator. We have a couple of shows on the eliminator strategy from Off and On the Clock. I would definitely go check those out. You know what? I think I'm going to have a luxury pick here at some point. I'm going to go ahead and take Bryce Young here. Like, these are the spots where I didn't feel the pressure to force QB3 on a Lawrence and Goff team, but you're going to give me Bryce Young, ADP of 158 at pick 175 as my 3rd quarterback there. I also have Chuba Hubbard on this team. I'm already invested in Carolina's success. I'm going to go ahead and just tack on Bryce Young here. And now we have 3 more picks. One of them is for sure a tight end. One of them is for sure a wide receiver. And then I think the final pick is either getting me to a 7th wide receiver or a 4th tight end. Ideally here, I think we get to 3 tight ends and then we are able to use the last 2 bullets on wide receiver. I think that's probably the optimal path for this team. Quick rundown. Amon-Ra, Drake London, Kyren, Skattebo, Christian Watson, Rhamondre Stevenson, Chuba Hubbard, Trevor Lawrence, Jacoby Myers, Jared Goff, Aaron Jones, Travis Hunter, Brenton Strange, TJ Hawkinson, and then we get a sliding Bryce Young. Aaron Rodgers goes ahead of him. Mendoza goes ahead of him. Bryce Young at 175. I'm okay with that price. I like that price a lot. You kind of look like Will Ferrell, bro. I saw Will Ferrell on the Jumbotron at the World Cup game yesterday. I'll take it, man. I'll take it. All right, we're back on the clock here. Yeah, this is going to be tight end for me. And I want to look through here. Gunnar Helm, I like. Otten, I like. Then we're down to the Ferguson Gesicki. Let's check the buys here, 7 and 9. Let's go ahead and grab Gunnar Helm. We'll grab Gunnar Helm as our 3rd tight end. I think it's probably pretty close between Otten and him. There's just a little bit more, probably mystery box upside with Gunnar Helm. Can we get the breakout offense? Can Cam Ward improve? That tight end's going to come along for the ride if Cam Ward takes the step. We kind of know who Cade Otten is at this point. And on a team where we have Strange and Hawkinson, I feel like that's a decent base there at tight end. Let's take a slightly bigger swing on Gunnar Helm over Cade Otten. That, man, I tell you what, didn't we talk about this on Best Ball Breakfast last week? I cannot talk about the Panthers without someone coming in on the chat and saying something like, it's Dan Mack just said, Jatavian Sanders ass team. And I said this before, you guys are going to make me relapse because I was a Jatavian Sanders bull. I loved that guy. I thought he was going to be the next great thing at tight end. It is a really weak depth chart. I will give you that at tight end. I mean, Panthers tight end depth chart. I mean, what are we even working with over here? Is Tommy Tremble still on this roster? Tommy Tremble, Jatavian Sanders, Mitchell Evans. There you go. The Mitchell Evans guys. And Felipe Franks. You cannot convince me that that is not a pizza joint as opposed to being a fourth tight end. I will not believe you. All right, 2 more picks here, round 17 and 18. I do think we're looking at wide receivers here. I need to make sure Lawrence, we're done stacking. Goff with Detroit, we're done. Tesla's off the board. Bryce Young, I think Brazel in the 18th certainly makes a ton of sense. And so we're looking for another option in here. Week 11 and week 7 buys, we probably want to avoid. Let's do Tyquan has been a guy that I've been enjoying a bit in this range. Let's go ahead and do Tyquan Thornton. We're at the point where outside of stacking purposes, man, I look at these names of wide receivers, Ted Hurst, Darnell Mooney, Cooper Kupp, Pat Bryant, Elijah Surratt, Keon Coleman, Rashad Bateman, Kayshon Boutte. I feel so dead inside when I read those names. Just so dead inside. So desensitized. I can't get up for it. I can't get up for my 17th round pick. No butterflies. Nothing that sparks joy in my life when I read those names. But yeah, Dwayne was really selling me on Tyquan Thornton. I do think he's one of those guys that I feel good about the role, that he is going to be out there. And I was impressed by how well he played last year. And you get all of the kind of contingent upside through Tyquan Thornton with the fragility of Rashee Rice, biggest knucklehead in the world. Xavier Worthy, you guys want to do the injury thing? Let's do it with Xavier Worthy. Travis Kelce's ancient. I mean, there's paths to even more targets for Tyquan Thornton in that offense. The solver wants me to take Cooper Kupp here, but I will be taking Brazel. We're going to have a little fun. I need to feel something. I need to feel something here with my final pick. 3-5-6-3. Definitely need a wide receiver. I think you could argue guys like Darnell Mooney, guys like Cooper Kupp are maybe a little bit safer. But I think with this base up top with Amon-Ra and Drake London and Christian Watson, I think we can take a swing here. Get the obligatory rookie on the roster. Can't win BBM without a rookie, guys. I don't know if you caught that memo, but you can't win BBM without a rookie wide receiver. Pete feels something when he drafts Pat Bryant. You know, I used to, but then I clicked him so much. You know, for a late round pick who has an ADP of 204, like 9.2% is a decent amount of a player. I'll still take him on Bo Nix teams. I have seen some of the reporting now where they're making it seem like it's going to be a true battle for that wide receiver 3, and that you could have a rotational element where, depending on the game flow, depending on the specific down and distance, where Marvin Mims gadget packages might make more sense. Troy Franklin downfield threat might make more sense. I do think Pat Bryant is the best of those 3. I think he fits alongside of Sutton and Waddle, the best of those 3. So I still maintain he's going to kind of lead those guys in routes. But if we enter any kind of rotation, it does start to get really dicey with Pat Bryant. Sweet Leaf says the chill ganja Pete Silvestream is what the masses want, but Pete to be too high to keep up with the queue. By the way, that reminds me, if you guys did not see the Best Ball Bash last Thursday, we've had some awesome Bash episodes. I think this was the best Bash episode we've ever had. We kicked things off with Fantasy Pill. Really strong guest. We drafted a fun team. He pushed me, challenged me on some of my player takes. We drafted some guys I don't normally take. And then things really got off the rails in the best possible way. We had little Trev join the stream, and he joined the stream. The first thing I see when I pull him up is he's shutting his front door and running back into the house. And I immediately sussed out what had happened. He had gone out to smoke a bowl right before coming on stream. He later admitted that he was nervous and he was excited and he tried to calm his nerves. The dude was zooted to the max, just hella lifted for 18 rounds. He was pulling up gal brain moves. We took Jadarian McMillan at the 2-3 turn. Absolutely hilarious draft with little Trev. And then after that, we had a guest named T-Guard who calls in from the warehouse of a medical supply company that he shares with his dad, who's his boss, technically his stepdad. But we get this heartwarming moment of him saying, "That's not my stepdad. That's my dad." One of the most genuine moments we've ever had on the Bash. We drafted a fun team. His dad's barking at him from the other room. It felt like an episode of The Office meets Workaholics. I think Easy said it reminded him of Tires. Just an incredible episode. So make sure you guys go and watch that. That's the Best Ball Bash every Thursday, noon Eastern. If you're a YouTube member, you can join Fantasy Pill, Little Trev, T-Guard, get a chance to come on stream, draft a team with me. I'll pay. You can do weird shit. You can draft Jadarian McMillan at the 2-3 turn. I don't care. We'll have a fun time, a glorious time in this past Best Ball Bash. Lived up to my expectations for the Bash when I thought of this idea for a show. Here's the team, guys. 3-5-7-3. I'll say this, man. A lot of times these first drafts in the morning, they can feel a little rusty. They don't go well. Maybe I'm getting stream sniped. Maybe there's a bunch of you guys in here trying to take some of my guys. I like how this one turned out. I really do. You guys tell me if you agree. Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, and Bryce Young at quarterback. Kyren Williams, Cam Skattebo, Rhamondre Stevenson, Chuba Hubbard, Aaron Jones at running back. My guess is you're not going to love the running backs. But I think from a pure draft capital spent, projectable volume, I think it's a good team. I think where you poke holes in the running back room is you say, where's the late season juice? Can you see any of these guys late in the season projecting for 18 plus points per game on a weekly basis? I think that's probably the holes you poke there. The wide receiver room, Amon-Ra, Drake London, Christian Watson, Jacoby Myers, Travis Hunter, Tyquan Thornton, Chris Brazzell. I think you have 3 legit alphas there in Amon-Ra, London, Watson. You have the correlated piece with the cheap Jags wide receivers. And then you have 2, better and best ball dart throws in Tyquan Thornton and Brazzell. And then the 3 tight ends, Brenton Strange, TJ Hawkinson, Gunnar Helm, went really cheap at tight end. First one at 151. But I think Strange, Hawkinson, Helm, I think that plays. Let's check the draft report here. Compliments of the solver. I was talking about the combinatorial tool earlier. Obviously, you sync your teams, get all of your exposures, get that tool up there. You also get these post-draft draft reports, which are a nice way to quickly visualize your team. And you guys can always get 20% off the solver. You can see it down below there right now with promo code Pete. Move that banner for a second so you can see it. They have a couple different price points depending on the volume of drafts you're doing. But if you're doing any kind of volume, 10, 15, 20 plus drafts this summer, highly recommend it. Really good way to keep tabs on your portfolio and make sure that you're mixing it up a bit. Looking at my report here, nothing massive in the ADP value or the draft capital value buckets there. Did reach for Rhamondre, was kind of reaching on some of these receivers, but really like it from a team level correlation standpoint. Lawrence, triple stack. Goff, skinny stack. Bryce Young with Chuba and Brazzell. Although, do I get my week 17 card revoked here? No week 17 correlation. I feel like that's almost hard to do. I feel like you have to go out of your way not to just blindly stumble into some week 17 correlation. But I didn't get it, guys. I didn't get it. No week 17 correlation for me. Still got to get there, bro. This does feel like a team that could get there. Feels like a team that could get there. DMC likes it. Good looking team. There's T-Guard in the chat. Means a lot. Tumbling. Thank you all. Go check out T-Guard. Oh, yeah. Chad was right next to me in the draft. Now I'm putting together the usernames there. He says, you sniped me on Rhamondre, and I got stuck with Parker Washington. Sorry, brother. This team needs Skattebo to stop backflipping. I assume everybody saw the backflip at this point. Is there anyone that still needs to see it here? Here's the oh my God. I love how he shows his knee before too. And then falls out. I mean, this guy is just pure energy. I mean, the amount of creatine coursing through his veins right now, pre-workout. I mean, just absolutely jacked up. What a dude. What a dude. Copy paste Lade says he likes Brazel. Gonna moss a couple dudes this year. Bryce deep ball is nice. Yeah, man. Like, I know we're all, I mean, clearly people are skeptical with Bryce Young. I mean, he just went at pick 175, but I think he'd have to be pretty damn bad to get benched. I mean, we've seen it, right? It happened with Andy Dalton initially, but I think we've kind of progressed past that point in his career. I think he's going to play 17 games. We've seen the spike weeks from Bryce Young. I mean, this guy has put up 30 balls. He's got a little rushing juice to his portfolio. He can throw the deep ball a little bit. They keep adding weapons for him. Year 2 Tetaroya breakout. I'm excited about Bryce Young at these prices. Harb says Aaron Jones feels like the wrong profile as the RB5. Feels like that should be an upside guy. You know what? It's funny you say that. I was looking at Keaton Mitchell there. He was available when I took Aaron Jones. I think the thing that I would push back on is that the way the running back points hit your lineup in best ball, I do think there's value to having these guys that can hit at different times of the year. And if you just stack 5 of these bets that are constantly hitting your lineup, I do think it really raises your floor. But I hear you on it. Like the hole I said you could poke in it in this running back room is exactly what you just laid out. Like, take a bigger swing there. Try to get some late season juice. Keaton Mitchell probably would have been the pick if that's what I was truly going for there. Tracy goes after. Keaton Mitchell goes at 134. Spears marks. I would also just say outside of Mitchell, I don't even know who fits that bill in this range. And even with Mitchell, yes, I think there's contingent upside there if Hampton gets hurt, but it does really feel like in that scenario that we just get like a bigger role from Kamani Vidal and Keaton Mitchell's role doesn't necessarily change. And so then it comes back down to what do we think the base Keaton Mitchell role is going to be? And I know there's starting to be a lot of enthusiasm for Mitchell. Ben Gretsch wrote a big long piece about him recently. I'm certainly opening up my eyes to some of the ceiling scenarios, but I guess I would just say, Harbs, in this specific instance, I'm not sure that that even accomplishes what I would be hoping for in that. Because to me, it just feels like we're going to find out what Mike McDaniel's role is for Keaton Mitchell, I think, pretty early on this season. And we're going to know, is this just a replay of what happened with Keaton Mitchell in Baltimore all these years, where he's pretty capped from a touch perspective? Or are we in a Mostert versus Achane 2.0 kind of thing where he's heavily involved? But yeah, thinking through the contingent stuff with Keaton Mitchell is kind of interesting. Greg wants me to pour some more coffee. I think I'm running out here, but I got you, brother. I got you. This is a good question, Trevor. Is anything happening with the masterclass this season? Yes, we have been begging the powers that be to get us the 2025 data. I am told it will happen soon. And yeah, John, Nez, and myself definitely want to refresh some of the 2025 data, get some updated roundtables, an updated course section that is on the roadmap. Numi, if you're watching, can we please get that data? Please. Wow, you guys are being rough on Aaron Jones. It feels like Aaron Jones is just expensive Alvin Kamara at this point, and I'm a Vikings fan. Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that, because I think Aaron Jones is going to have more base work than Alvin Kamara is. Like, I think Alvin Kamara's role is going to be very specified to third down situations. I think Jordan Mason will obviously get the bulk of those early ones, but they're going to have drives where they keep Aaron Jones on the field and he's rushing. You know, I think they're going to have drives where they're in a hurry up and they don't pull Aaron Jones off the field when they get inside the 10-yard line and Aaron Jones gets some goal lines. Like, I view that more as a committee backfield where they might be comfortable rolling them out drive by drive, as opposed to him being really pigeonholed into a third down role. I mean, Aaron Jones has carried the load throughout his career. We've seen bell cow Aaron Jones. So I think that's a little unfair to him. I think he's a better interior runner at this point in his career. I mean, the juice just completely fell off for Alvin Kamara at this point. So that is the 88th Best Ball Mania team in the books here. My Best Ball Mania exposure is kind of borked just because so many of my Best Ball Mania teams have been drafted with co-managers. But whoever was asking me about the Steelers earlier, there you go. Jeremy Bernard, 19.3% through 88 teams. Dejon Stribling. I feel like anytime I draft with Sam or Pat, we take Dejon Stribling. I'll own up to the Travis Hunter exposure here at 17%. Calvin Ridley at 15.9%. I don't know if I would have guessed that one. Do love Devontae Adams, 15.9%. I think a smash pick in the middle of the fifth where you can still get him. Geno Smith, my most drafted quarterback at 15.9%. Can't say I love that, but I am drafting a lot of Omar Cooper. I think. Where's my Omar Cooper exposure? I say that, and then I can't even find him on this list. Am I not drafting a lot of Omar Cooper? 8%. How much SYTYCT do I have? 12.5%. I think it's Garrett Wilson that's probably driving a lot of that. Yeah, 14.8%. So Garrett Wilson is an early fourth round stand for me, which is funneling me to a lot of Geno. Breece Hall, 12.5%. So yeah, when I end up with these Jets early, Geno as that cheap quarterback 3 definitely comes into focus for me. And now you can see here lately, Rhamondre really charging up my exposures up to 14.8% on Rhamondre. I agree with this from Charlie. Putting Keaton Mitchell in the same tier as Aaron Jones is Slappy's getting bored in July. I think it's a fair conversation about what kind of profile do you tack on there. But man, maybe it is just the humility element of getting humbled like over the years with best ball and just stacking these bets of guys who have more defined roles is generally going to be better and work out for you more than kind of taking these more uncertain mystery swings. Those all have a place on teams for sure. But yeah, a sliding Aaron Jones there. And kind of the thing too for me, not to belabor the Vikings backfield, but the Vikings backfield is a spot I want to be targeting. And I've used the example, I wrote about this in the Fantasy Life newsletter. The Vikings backfield feels a lot to me like the Dallas backfield heading into last year. And yes, Aaron Jones versus Jordan Mason is way more of a battle than Jaden Blue versus Javonte Williams. And obviously we were all wrong on how involved Jaden Blue was going to be. But the reason it was comparable for me is I basically ignored that Cowboys backfield. I said, I love this offense. Dak's going to cook. George Pickens is the best pick you can take at the 4-5 turn. All of that stuff was correct. And yet somehow in my mind, I decided to segment off the running back game and say, they're not going to have enough running back points. It's going to be too messy. It's going to be dusty, whatever. Just invest in the passing game. We know the overall success of the offense is correlated. That if George Pickens is cooking, if Dak is cooking, there's going to be goal line opportunities. And guess what? That's what happened. Javonte Williams fell into the end zone a million times last year, shoved it down my throat. It was like, come on. Like, how am I off that after being interested in the offense? So that brings me to the Vikings. I think Kyler is going to be a shot in the arm for this offense. Like, I do think they're going to get the most out of him, and this offense is going to be a lot more dynamic. And I don't want to just wave Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones because they're a little older. They're a little less exciting. If these guys are in a 50-50 split in an offense that takes a leap and KOC's cooking and Kyler's cooking, there are going to be a lot of points to be had here. There's going to be a lot of touchdown opportunities. And I think I'm just content saying, I don't know who it's going to be, but at these prices, I want to load up on Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. That's just kind of where I'm at right now. Current ADP, Jordan Mason 115.4, Aaron Jones 120. And I do think there are scenarios where both of these guys can pay off these ADPs if a third back isn't involved. And we'll all pay attention, right? If Damon Claiborne is coming, if he starts knocking and we hear the drum beat and we see the signals in preseason, I will adjust on this take. I will certainly adjust on this take. But right now, I think the most likely scenario is Damon Claiborne red shirts this year. And we all get excited about these rookies. We want him to be the guy because a young player leading this backfield is way more exciting from a pure upside potential than just Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones. But the most realistic thing is Damon Claiborne is basically a fancy zero this year. And Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones are at a 50-50 split. So we'll talk with our next guest here about this situation. But I am just taking a humility approach to this Vikings backfield because there aren't too many spots like this where it's a two-headed backfield going this cheap in drafts. And I haven't even pulled off the double tap of these guys yet, Jordan Mason, Aaron Jones. I actually think it's cheap enough, and I think their roles could be different enough that you're not running into like a handcuff situation where you're eating a zero from one of them. I do really think you could return value from both of these guys if the offense is as good as I think we all hope it can be with Kyler. But let's get Mark Dank up here. We'll see if he agrees as we kind of talk through this spot here with the Vikings. Mark Dank, not even going to attempt your last name. I heard you call me out on the Establish the Edge podcast. We're just going to stick with what you put in your Twitter handle. Mark Dank, welcome to the show, brother.
You're a smart man, Pete. Yeah, I mean, it's more memorable too, you know. And I was hanging out with some friends this past week. I was in a foursome of golf. I knew two of the guys, was introduced to the fourth, and introduced myself as Mark. And then out on the course, you know, my friends are calling me Dank the whole time. And at a point he turns to me and he's like, what are they calling you? Like, I thought your name was Mark, you know. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, you know, it's a last name's Dank and Bring, but you know, don't need to pronounce the last two syllables, so Dank works. But yeah, the Minnesota backfield is a fun one to talk through, and we just hit it on the NFC North pod for ET last week with Gretch and Jack, and that was one, like, going into the conversation, I was like, honestly, I don't have a huge take here on either guy that I love, but I had been taking both up to that point. We were a little bit ahead of ranks on both, honestly. And at the time of recording, their ADP was both like 118 on Underdog. Exactly. And so, you know, it pretty much was a toss up. I kind of left that conversation thinking I want a little more Jordan Mason on Underdog and a little bit more Aaron Jones on PPR sites, you know, like DraftKings or anywhere else, just kind of leaning into their profiles a little bit. But I certainly think both are good bets. And I was looking as I was listening to you kind of go on about the backfield, and last year the Vikings running backs had 9 rush attempts total inside the 5-yard line.
Wow.
There's over 20. There's over 20 running backs in the NFL that had over 9 on their own. So, you know, just the lack of opportunities in like the scoring zone there for the Vikings was horrible with JJ McCarthy. And like you said, just like having Kyler Murray there is going to lift the whole offense, I think, you know, pretty severely compared to what it was last year.
If you got that list pulled up, how many did Javonte have last year?
Let's see. Javonte was at 16. He was actually fifth in the NFL with 16 rush attempts inside the 5-yard line.
Yeah, and so it's like, what do you think of? Obviously, I think we all kind of think Jordan Mason is the favorite for goal line carries, but I do think there's scenarios where Aaron Jones, he's been trusted at the goal line over his career. I don't think it's going to be something. So even if you split up like the 16 Javonte things there and you get like a 10-6 split with these guys, I mean, you're starting to see a pretty massive jump in just their opportunities last year as far as the backfield, and a way that the ADPs could work out for both of them.
For sure. And last year it was 6-2 in favor of Mason over Jones, but it's hard to know exactly when that split happened. Obviously, Aaron Jones missed some games. You know, maybe there was some time where Mason got some inside the 5 carries when Jones wasn't even an option. I think it's probably a scenario like if Aaron Jones gets him down into the 5, I don't think it's an automatic sub out to get Jordan Mason in there. You know, I do think if they're on the 1 or 2 yard line, like it's probably going to Mason, but in terms of like if they're in just the flow of a drive, I don't necessarily think like Jones is getting pulled out every single time down there. And he's also going to be, you know, a receiving back around the goal line too, has that talent. We've seen some running backs utilized in in that role over the years as well. So
this is another thing, and it's funny because we got Minnesota Mike is the username here. He says JJM was historically bad, but does it make anyone else nervous that Kyler hasn't been able to clearly win the starting job? KOC still doing interviews, unwilling to crown Kyler the starter. I've basically just ignored and waved all that as just like classic coach. We got a camp battle, like I just want to make him earn it. I mean, does anyone think that Kyler Murray isn't taking the job week 1? And does anyone even think that he doesn't have a pretty long leash? I don't. I'm skeptical.
Well, there was Gretsch mentioned this. There was like a quote that O'Connell had during an interview recently where he's like, we're excited to get back to like our quarterback doing their job so we can have a better offensive output, or something along those lines. Essentially, just like burying JJ McCarthy's performance from last season. So I kind of came into the spring being like, man, it potentially could be a little bit of a battle there, but I definitely, I mean, I would be shocked if Kyler Murray is not the week 1 starter.
And isn't there too, like there's this, Chad says he's always politically, playing the politics there, which there is this element of like, you drafted JJ McCarthy really high. It's an absolute whiff of a pick. You had to go out and pay Kyler. There's an element of saving face, like saying like, ooh, he's showing some stuff, like, ooh, maybe there is still something here, whether that's drumming up for a trade market or just trying to not look like, oh my God, organizationally, we whiffed on this pick. Of course, they're not gonna, completely say he is dead to everyone and will never play another snap in the league.
100%. I mean, he's still on your team, still in that quarterback room. Like they want to imbue some confidence in him. It's not like they're just going to act like he's the worst player in the world. And there are cases this year where if Kyler goes down, like they might kind of go back to JJ. They do have Wentz, on the roster still. That maybe he could play ahead of him, but yeah, it's not like you want to cut down the confidence of a guy on your roster.
Any other spots, over the weekend? I do feel like we are in like the deadest of dead periods as far as actionable news or anything. Like even I go to World and it's like there's like 3 blurbs from the past like 7 days. Like nothing is happening other than Cam Skattebo doing backflips on one leg. So have there been any other interesting discussions for you guys internally with projections? I assume even talking with Gretsch is maybe giving you guys some new ways to think about things. Any noticeable adjustments, or has it been kind of plateauing for you guys as well?
Our changes recently have definitely been spurred by the ETE pods with Gretsch, and like after every episode, we'll leave with some notes on things that we want to change. And so we've kind of released some batch changes this morning. Levitan was in our Slack kind of just saying like, hey, how do we feel about this Samaje Perine rank again? Want to make sure we're good there versus him and Taj Brooks, and kind of same with Justice Hill. And these guys at the back end of the draft are so sensitive and are the easiest to get, 30, 40 spots ahead of rank. So in our ETR season long ranks, we have a base outcome for players and then a ceiling outcome for players. And a lot of times with vets, Cooper Kupp being one of them at the end of drafts, we've kind of slashed their ceiling odds. So, the odds of hitting their ceiling case that we've given them. And so we ended up just doing that with Perine and Justice Hill for the Ravens, because, even if we think they're the favorite for RB2 work behind Chase Brown and Derrick Henry there, like if either of those starters went down, we don't think they would necessarily be put into, a major workhorse role. And so we kind of slashed their odds of hitting that ceiling case. And they did, drop quite a bit in the ranks. So that's probably a spot to re-upload, Pete, there if you haven't.
I just did.
I think.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, that was the only changes this morning. But no, for the most part, I mean, on the news front, it's very quiet. Any of the changes have really come from the pod with Gretsch and just, reanalyzing our spots.
Yeah, DG asked the other question that's kind of on everybody's mind right now. When are we going to get these old wide receivers signing? Obviously, Diggs is a big one. Debo, there's been a decent amount of chatter about Keenan Allen recently as well. You guys, and this was one of the big differences, right, between your guys' process and Gretsch's, is that you guys are leaving some target share available as you guys work through these projections. Gretsch kind of working with the players available right now. Do you have any kind of timeline on what you're envisioning here? Because I think I even heard you guys reference like, if it comes like September 1st or 2nd and we don't have it, maybe we'll start reallocating this. But the majority of people are going to be drafting their best ball teams before then too. So how do you think through that push-pull?
It's tough to know. I don't really have a prediction on when these guys would sign. I would think, once camp rolls around, which is in the next week or so, that I'm very excited for training camp to start, because then we get some actual news and things happening across the league. But yeah, in terms of leaving unlisted like target shares for teams, even after we did the Packers on the ETE pod, we were kind of like, man, we still have a lot of unlisted here. We think out of the teams left that they're probably less likely to sign one of these veteran wide receivers. So we took some unlisted wide receiver target share and gave it to Jayden Reed and Matthew Golden there. For teams like the Commanders, the Raiders, we've left a lot. The Chargers, we've left a little bit, just with Keenan kind of still being out there. I also saw some rumblings like over the weekend that like Debo's been hanging out with Kittle and some of the 49ers guys. So that could potentially be, reunited there, which I hadn't heard before. So, but there honestly are a lot of names still out there. It would be awesome for us drafting if they were to sign somewhere soon.
For sure. Yeah. And I think it's good to be careful. I think at least drafting the veterans, I think all of those guys are going to rise. I was even writing about Diggs the other day, when he had his quote about how he was the best wide receiver 2 in the NFL. And I was thinking, even in the worst case scenarios, like I would say the Raiders, the Dolphins, those would be spots we're not too excited. I still think his ADP even inches up a smidge, just because there's confidence in the stacking. Just the ambiguity is what generally keeps those prices cheap. And then there's the scenarios where it is the Commanders, it is the Ravens, that you get this 2-3 round windfall. Keenan Allen signs with the Colts. He's moving up 3 or 4 rounds. Same with even Debo to the Niners. So at the very least, you're getting CLV here. And then I think the hard thing is, do you want to protect yourself against the incumbents, the teammates they'd be joining on? Like, are you getting bad CLV on Josh Downs? Are you, is all of a sudden DeJon Stribling looks like a really tough pick if Debo goes back to the Niners? That's the kind of flip side that I think is a little more tricky.
No doubt. And I think once camp gets going, like, I can't wait to see if Alec Pierce is practicing early on, because that's probably a spot the Colts, I wonder, like, internally, this is all speculation obviously, but I wonder internally if they're like, hey, let's see in camp if how Alec Pierce is performing. If he's gonna be healthy week 1, like, I don't think they probably feel super pressed to add to that room necessarily. But if he, if there's questions over week 1, or if he doesn't look great off the bat, like, maybe there's a little bit more urgency to get a deal done or something. So I think, the start of camp will really start to kind of trigger these teams to making decisions.
For sure. Yeah. And because, like, similar with a guy like Keenan, the flip side is true too, right? Like, they don't want to come and it's like, oh, Alec Pierce is healthy and Downs is out here, and you're just kind of like riding the pine. Like, these guys want to play if they're coming back. So they're probably all just waiting to see, is there an actual role for me here or not? I guess with the Commanders, it's less about the injury timelines. It's just like, do they actually want to add a body to their room? We are underway here. 89th Best Ball Mania draft. We got the 102 mark. I assume we're keeping things above board here with Bijan, or you got a fancy playing you?
No, Bijan works for me.
All right, let's do it. Do you think, because there has been a lot of talk lately, and I know you guys are firmly in the Gibbs over Bijan crowd, you'll occasionally see people flip these two, I think, kind of liking the perceived safety of Bijan a little bit more. Do you think Bijan is closer to Gibbs or closer to, say, a CMC Jonathan Taylor as far as a running back tier kind of discussion?
I probably think closer to the middle of the first. I've really started to get even more confident on Gibbs as like the 101. And, I'm in a couple auction drafts. Like, I'd be willing to pay, I don't know, $5 to $10 more for Gibbs than Bijan. I think that's how we have it in ranks. I think just with the level of the offense, feeling so much more confident there, and then Gibbs' explosiveness and just like, I think Pacheco is much weaker competition than Brian Robinson. I love Jahmyr Gibbs. I think it's very hard to get away from him as the 101. So, Bijan, a few more questions. Obviously, he's electric too, but there's so many moving parts there in Atlanta. I'm a little bit worried about the QB play and hard to know how Stefanski and this new offense is going to go. So just way more questions I feel like are unanswered in Atlanta.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you. I think if I was going to do the devil's advocate, I'd be like, if Algier was staying in Atlanta and we were just kind of running this back, are we still drafting Bijan 102? My guess is we probably are, especially how we finished last year. And then it's like, Brian Robinson at best is like a poor man's Algier as far as his juice. And I think you could probably assume like maybe he does get a little less goal line work than Algier, who they really liked there. If he is functionally more closer to a Pacheco type, like, doesn't that give us even more confidence in Bijan at 102 than we would have had otherwise?
It very well could. Yeah. And I think in the first round, sometimes it's like, it's hard to paint the bear case a lot for these first round picks. Not like I think Bijan is a bad pick by any means. We have him at number 2, but it's more, I do think Gibbs separates as the 101 in my mind, at least. But yeah, it's not like I'm fading Bijan or anything. Certainly happy to take him when the board falls that way.
We start Bijan. We're about to pick here at 211. We have Achane, London, Pickens come off the board. We'll see what Spider Monkey does here. Best available by ADP, Bowers, Collins, Jeremiyah Love. Bowers does go. Rank is Collins, Love here. ADP, Collins, Love. I've been trying to get a little bit more Love, but I'm also open to Collins for sure.
No, I'm into Nico. Let's go Collins for sure.
All right, let's do it. We'll grab Nico here to pair with Bijan. Let's make this next pick, and then we can kind of talk through these two selections here. This has been, I think, a tricky part of the board, the early start of the third, where I think you can start to make the case it's pretty flat. McBride's now been falling more. Are you pulling up a wide receiver here? Rashee Rice goes. We'll see what M. Martin does with their second pick here. By ETR rank, it is Love and then Olave. We should talk about Olave. Jeremiyah Love is still here. Rank and ADP.
Yeah, let's do that.
Or do you like something else?
No, let's do Jeremiyah. That sounds good. He's someone. This is a turn that I felt not super convicted on at this point of draft season. I do like Nico a lot at the end of the second there, but kind of once it gets back to the early third, I've had a tough time. So if Love is there, I do like taking him. Olave, I've started to mix in like Devontae Smith a little bit over Olave. I just don't want to get too tilted there towards Olave, but certainly the Saints offense is one I think is like a really fun bet in fantasy.
Yeah. And yeah, I like how this works. Sometimes I talk through this with me because, and maybe it's just because I'm kind of in a Jeremiyah Love phase right now and I've been getting more excited about just getting this kind of profile at a third round discount. And really, one of the things I wrote about in the newsletter is I was looking at the Genty price last year as RB4. He finishes as RB16, and it's like a disaster because Cook and Taylor and the other guys going around him have these league winning seasons. Jeremiyah Love right now, I believe, is RB13. Even if he has the Genty finish of an RB16, it's like it's a small miss. It doesn't even kill your team necessarily. If he has a couple spike weeks like Genty did, it's like he could be a fine advance rate piece. And so I'm just starting to think that I'm appreciating the discount that we're getting on a guy like Love and Dwayne McFarland's supermodel. He's top 5 since 2017 as far as his prospect rating. So it's rare to get a guy like this here. But what would you say is the whole or why Love is fairly priced in the beginning of round 3?
I think it's to me it is the competition in the backfield plus just how tough the Cardinals schedule is and how they're projected I think to score the fewest points or like bottom 3 across the league in terms of projected team total. Their first part of the schedule through the first 12 weeks is just absolutely insanely brutal. And then so honestly, like in best ball, I think I've started this. I was fading most of the Cardinals like coming in to the summer, and then as the prices have gotten a little more appetizing, I'm like, man, in best ball, when all the money's in the playoff weeks, especially week 17, they have such a strong playoff schedule. Like I've been more interested in taking Love lately. So, I think it's probably easier fades in redraft where, obviously the payouts are in week 17 and redraft as well, but I think it's going to be tough to have too many successful teams, featuring Cardinals players throughout the year. Don't love the QB play scenario there. So, I've come around on taking him a little bit more, but yeah, I do think the schedule concerns and just how outlier high their pass rate was last year. I just think, it's going to overcorrect or it's going to correct, a ton there this season. So it hasn't been a spot I've been super easy to take.
The chat does mention the Cardinals playoff schedule. Chad here, Taras says they get Jets, New Orleans, Las Vegas. So yeah, if you can get them there, you can certainly see how everything comes together for him putting up 20 plus points a game as the bell cow back in a soft schedule. So yeah, certainly intriguing there. We're about to be on the clock at 4:11. McLaurin comes off the board as the slider by rank. Adams, of course, always here. Loveland, Swift, JMO, Demont. Who do you like?
I'd probably be JMO or Devontae. I do like Loveland too, but I think we got to get a wide receiver here.
Let's do, because Devontae, I feel like I'm able to get him in the early 5th pretty reliably. I have a nice bag of him here, 14.5%. Let's grab JMO. I want to talk about him after these 2 picks, and then we'll kind of have flexibility. This drafter could go Loveland and Adams, and then maybe we're scrambling a smidge, but I think this will be a good spot for us. He goes Lamar. So Loveland in the 5th feels great.
Oh yeah. I love this. And seeing you is at 5% there. You got to get that up, Pete. I think Loveland is probably one of the best picks on the board right now. I've absolutely been loving taking him over the last couple weeks. I don't think it's a far stretch to think that he could be the top pass catcher in that offense. And just really love his profile entering. I mean, he was only 21 last year and just absolutely dominated down the stretch. I think Loveland is one of the best picks on the board for sure.
So the 2v2 you could look at would be, and again, McBride sliding, but for most of the summer, he had been going early 3rd. McBride and Montgomery in this draft, or Jeremiyah Love or Loveland.
I mean, yeah, I would take Love and Loveland there for sure. And we got the Love squad, baby. Bunch of love on this team, Pete.
All you need is love. Let's talk about JMO there. Obviously, the ETR ranks very bullish on Adams. I certainly see the case for Adams over JMO, but it does seem like you have a little bit more optimism than maybe even the ranking would suggest for JMO.
Yeah, that was a spot. I've already referenced the ET pods with Gretch a ton, but that was a spot like we were way behind Gretch on JMO, and we were pretty much in line with him like in against ADP, and the efficiency case for JMO has been or is like pretty easy to see as well. And then just like the concentration of targets on the Lions, it's a spot where at their price right now, I think they're all good bets. And then if anyone in out of Amon-Ra, JMO, Laporta, Gibbs like went down, I think things would really just condense on the other guys there, the other top guys. And so you have a pretty solid base case, and then the ceiling case gets pretty outrageous. And JMO was one too. I kind of forgot last year, you like seasons feel so long or so long ago. And I had like forgotten like JMO like goose eggs, a couple times in the first few weeks of last season, and people were absolutely panicking. And then he just, smashed down the stretch. So I think it's a great base bet on JMO just in this offense. And then again, if anyone else gets hurt, the volume can really consolidate around him.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's too like, if you're really simplifying things of just having shares and ways to get tethered to this Lions offense that we have seen be so explosive. They get in these shootouts. They're one of a handful of teams, I've been talking about the Niners being another one, the Rams, the Bills, that are willing to get in these like 40-30, Dan Campbell not taking his foot off the gas. And yet the nice thing has been the JMO stuff. It used to feel very volatile. And like you said, some of those goose eggs, but then that like target floor really started to inch up, and it gave him just a little bit more of a base there while still accessing that, week winning ceiling that's so enticing. So yeah, this turn here, JMO, Colston Loveland. I do need to boost my Loveland exposure, but man, getting him here in early 5th certainly feels nice, compared to the mid 4th, where as the Stu references, sometimes you do have to grab him there.
Yeah. This team in the one spot is interesting. They pulled up Zay to the 2-3 turn and then took Lamar at the 4-5. I had not seen that done yet. That seems like a pretty interesting move.
Jayden Daniels goes. That slide would have been fun to stop. Hurts, Pollard, Makai Lemon, Warren, QJ here by
I'd be Metcalf with rank. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do Metcalf there by rank. He's an interesting one. I feel like I've taken my foot off the gas with Metcalf just because I defaulted to him so many times here of like, yeah, it's probably the best, pick from a projection standpoint. I have been like mixing in a little bit more, like trying to get Hurts and Makai Lemon here. Lemon's an interesting one to talk through just because your guys' rank is so different than the ADP. But let's make this choice here at 7-2, and then we'll figure it out. Pollard, Rhamondre, Hurts, Rico, probably our top options.
I'd probably go Hurts here, I think. I don't necessarily love our Caleb already went, so we don't have that option. And then I don't necessarily love start like Goff. I would prefer more as a QB2 than necessarily starting a build with him. So I think Hurts is a good one. And then he has week 10 bye, so overlaps with Loveland if we did want to get Goddard Goddard later. Probably a 2 tight end team here, so that's not necessarily the most ideal, but I think Hurts at let's see, what, QB6 off the board here. I think that's very solid.
So talk to me through that, because I do agree, like, this part of the board gets really flat to me, and I have been going Daniels or Hurts here. I think I probably would have gone Hurts and then had the discussion, do you go Lemon with him? Do you go Metcalf? Talk a little bit about the Lemon stuff, because the ADP, I know leg up is a lot higher than you guys with Lemon. Why so bearish on him relative to ADP?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think the Eagles still, to me, it kind of comes down to how do you project their offense in terms of pass rate and just like overall pass attempts. Because I feel pretty confident that Devontae Smith is going to be like the clear alpha, wide receiver 1 target earner here. And then we have Makai Lemon second on the team at 18.5% target share, which is high. Like for Metcalf, we have him at 18.5% as well. So similar target shares there. Lemon, I think, we project more as kind of like a lower ADOT, not extremely efficient player. And so when the volume, if he is going to be the wide receiver 2 there, the volume doesn't project to be outstanding for us right off the bat. We're also, just not sold that he's going to play in wide receiver 2 sets right off the jump there in Philly. So it's a spot that, like, on the projections, it doesn't come out great for us. I think Silva is also a little bit lower. So kind of all of us at ETR, don't necessarily feel the need to like bump Lemon up too much. It certainly is a scarier fade, just as a first round wide receiver drafted to a fun fantasy offense. So like I'm a little bit scared in that regard, but there's also time, between now and the start of the season to potentially come up there a little bit. We kind of thought the market would come to us a little bit more as the summer has gone along, but I do think the leg up push there is strong to keep his price where it is.
And it's kind of binary too, right? These first round wide receivers, if it's Omar Cooper, human resources, get him away from me. If it's tethered to a team like the Eagles, then it's like, okay, I'm on board here. We're about to pick at 8. What's that?
I was just going to say, same with Casey Concepcion as well.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
He goes 45 picks later. Like, I don't really think there's a huge gap there. Obviously the QB play is drastically worse in Cleveland, but overall,
Laporta here, that's too much at tight end. Michael Wilson, Fannin. What do you think?
I'm okay with Laporta. Let's go Laporta.
Try to set up this double stack here, potentially with Goff. Always interesting to check the Amon-Ra drafter. No quarterbacks here. They're probably going to take him at 103, 114, which isn't the end of the world, just a spot to think through there. We're probably not going quarterback here. If I look at running backs and wide receivers, Pearsall, Dobbins, Wilson, Jonathan Brooks, Jacoby by ADP. By rank, you still have Wilson, Myers, Golden, Dobbins here.
I'd be fine with Pearsall just went. That's a bummer. I was hoping to get him for some week 17. Man, I don't love Wilson, but this is an okay price. I'd probably be Wilson or Goff. So up to you on that one.
Let's see here. Man, Goff way down here at 109. I think we let Goff go with this like full wall here.
I prefer to have a wide receiver just in general, given we drafted her. It's not the cleanest run out here, Pete, but we can figure it out.
Yeah. Yep. And that, these are the spots that can be kind of tough where if you are really staying tethered to ranks, a guy like Laporta, it certainly makes sense in the combination with JMO. It does like box you out late draft flexibility because we're probably not going to draft a third tight end with Loveland.
No, definitely,
and Laporta.
Definitely not. So yeah, definitely not going to draft a third tight end. So it does, close down that slot. But I don't know. In general too, I think on Underdog with guys like Loveland and Laporta, you could get some flex week scores out of those two as well. So it's more like confidence in seeing them just as great pass catchers, less so than strictly at the tight end position there, especially since we are, a little bit behind like draft capital at wide receiver. I think we can almost use that tight end 2 spot as as a glorified wide receiver there.
Look at this super chat bomb here from Captain Applejacks. 50 smackaroos here. Love both your work. Seems appropriate with the prodigal son returning. Leone, who do you both think will be a Leone player that he will say is under or overvalued in move ADP? I mean, I'm guessing, Mark, he's probably going to be pretty in line with some of the current ETR stands. So it is a little more interesting to talk through where he might disagree with current ETR stuff. First of all, has he been a voice in the projections chat at all? Or is he really on his whatever offseason Rumspringa here and not involved at all?
He has taken more of a step back just on the projection stuff that has been more Jack and I's responsibility this summer than in previous years. I would say up top, but Leone always has input, and there are certain spots he's chimed in on for sure. Looking at the top of the board, I kind of feel like Leone's gonna be in on Trey McBride in the middle of the third round. If we're looking at the top of the board, I think that's probably a guy he would like out of speculation, but man, much harder to know like a fade that he would be into at this point of the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, generally the safest bet is someone that we get really excited about with upside scenarios that he's going to be a lot more down on as far as like getting there projection wise. I could see him, I'm thinking like the Keaton Mitchell, Isaiah Likely's of the world. I could see him being pretty down on those guys relative to ADP.
Potentially. No idea. Looking at this draft board, this player just took Concepcion, and they have 6 straight wide receivers there. I kind of want to see their team, how they started, because that's like a fun.
This is Hawkberg. I'm pretty sure he's a leg up guy. So this definitely looks like a sim build, a Taylor, Brown, Kerrane, and then ripping some wide receivers in there. All right.
That's a fun one. And
we did lose Goff, which is fine. Quarterback wise, I don't think there's anything else we need to address here. We're probably not looking at tight end, so I'm going to filter to running back and wide receiver. Thanks again, Captain Applejacks. But we are on the clock here by rank: Shakir, Rodriguez, Dobbs, Tracy, Coker, Higgins.
I'd be fine with C-Rod. Chris Rodriguez, and then I don't know, Shakir, Dobbs. I haven't been taking a ton of. I think they're both fine. We were a bit further behind on Dobbs to start the offseason. I'm certainly fine with him, though. We don't have too much correlation going on here, though. Let's see.
Yeah, it's Dobbs is kind of the ADP guy. Shakir is the rank guy. Do you have a preference?
What do you think about Higgins and going the Houston double with him and Nico?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
We initially maybe allegations were building, you're just a slave to the ETR ranks here. Having, Shakir. Oh, Shakir on an ETR team. Surprise, surprise. And then you get us on Higgins here. I like it.
Absolutely. And hopefully on stream doesn't hurt us here for a potential snipe, but I do like I think the Texans stuff is being way overblown in terms of like how bad Stroud played in the playoffs. Was listening to Greg Rosenthal's pod recently. He had Aaron Schatz on from FTN Fantasy, who does the Almanac, and they have like the Texans as the most likely Super Bowl candidate out of the AFC. And he was, I think he said Stroud was like 11th in EPA during the regular season last year among quarterbacks. And obviously people just really remember him shitting the bed in the playoffs, but he was solid in the regular season. I think with the weapons there with Nico and Higgins, like if we can end up getting Stroud to add on there, I think he's pretty undervalued in fantasy drafts. Like the fact that Cam Ward goes ahead of CJ Stroud, I think is pretty wild.
All right, we'll chill out on the CJ Stroud hype for now.
Yeah.
Charlie says, no need to overthink it. His fade will be Lemon. Yeah, I was trying to think of a fun one that might not be in line with current ETR ranks. Robert floats Burden Price. Yeah, I've mentioned Burden a lot. Feels a lot to me like early career JMO, where it's like the spike stuff is so evident, but it could be pretty rocky on a week-to-week basis. And, end up being one of those low advance rate guys that you're just hoping to sneak through, knowing he can spike there. This comment's interesting to me. Rodriguez over JCM is diabolical. I'm like the complete opposite side of that take, in that I think JCM is one of like the worst picks on the board right now, with just how much ambiguity I think there's going to be for that base work job in Washington, and just not assuming that there's really any kind of holdover or pull position for JCM when you factor in his draft capital relative to Katron Allen and the McWeapon being there and Jerome Ford. So I don't know. It sounds like you're probably on the same page with me with C-Rod, but what do you think about Bill?
Yeah, it's mostly the competition in the backfield. Like JCM just has so many more bodies to sift through to get meaningful work. And then C-Rod, kind of just has to have something happen to Tootin or there's just less competition for touches there. So I think like if you put JCM on the Jags, I'd be fine with it. Looks like we were able to get Stroud back here, which I think is the move for sure.
You were flying close to the sun over there, Mark Icarus.
I know.
We got it.
I love it. But yeah, I like Levitan asked us about this last week after he came off your stream, and it was kind of like if JCM was on the Jags and had the same pathway as Chris Rodriguez, like I'd probably be a little bit more excited about him. But just the fact that he's dealing with like 4 or 5 potential running backs that, in that backfield, whereas Rodriguez only pretty much one. Like I don't think LaQuint Allen, even though he's going to have a third down role, I don't think there's much upside to LaQuint Allen's role. Like I think Rodriguez is for sure the better bet.
About to pick here at 13-2 after we add CJ Stroud for that double stack. The only running back around here is Pacheco, who is on our Lions bet. And then like Juwan Jennings, Omar Cooper, Jalen McMillan there. What do you think?
I'd be good with any of the wide receivers, McMillan, Juwan, Cooper. So let's go McMillan, I think, get your exposure up on him a little bit too. I do like McMillan as the wide receiver 2 or 3 there in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, either talked about him with you or Levitan. He was definitely a guy that I've been a little hesitant with, specifically on teams where I don't have Baker, and just, essentially being a little concerned. Is he a lock to be in 3 wide receiver sets, or is that going to be the rookie Ted Hurst? Also, could you have a scenario where there is a flippening later in the season? Does the presence of guys like Tej Johnson and their ability to kind of rotate through some of these guys, does that hurt McMillan? Can Baker at this stage in his career support Igbuka and Godwin and Auden and allow Jalen McMillan to still have that? Those are kind of my issues with him. For sure.
I think he's just been honestly like really good whenever he's been on the field though. So I feel pretty confident like in his talents. And then, the Bucs passing offense in general is one I want to get behind. So, I think he's going to be pretty far ahead of Ted Hurst. Can Hurst track him down throughout the season? For sure. But he's also, we got him in the 13th round. It's not like we're expecting him to be like a bona fide contributor for us, week in and week out. Just hopefully get some usable weeks throughout the season.
So here's the team right now through 13 rounds. We have Hurts and Stroud, just the 3 running backs, but Bijan, Jeremiyah Love, Chris Rodriguez, up to 6 wide receivers here. Nico, Jamo, DK Metcalf, Michael Wilson, Jayden Higgins, Jalen McMillan, tight end Loveland, and Laporta. You mentioned it earlier, like working through this draft, like it does, like things don't seem to be coming together super clean other than that Stroud fallback. Like, and there is something to be on the 101, the 102 side. You're trying to pick off values, but man, when you don't have the benefit of being able to see how the board and the runs are going from the middle part of the board, you do get in some of these spots here where it's like, all right, we're kind of behind that running back, but there's no good running backs here. We're already, spent all of our capital at tight end, but there's some good tight end values. It's been a little tricky.
Right. And I think you have to make some calls, especially in like the Laporta Wilson turn. It's like, okay, should we take Pearsall and then like pull up Purdy a little bit, at like the 8-9 turn? I think there's, in hindsight, we probably should have made those picks more like in tandem with each other rather than isolated picks on the board. So I do think that is kind of like the critical part of the draft. I felt that in years past too, like the 8th, 9th, 10th round, a lot of times it's like, that's where you can start to pull up players further ahead of ADP. I feel like than earlier in the draft.
For sure. All right. We are about to pick at 167. Of course, the best running back on the board by rank is a handcuff to our 102 selection. You guys are now ahead on Kamara after he signed. I was looking at the fantasy life stuff. He goes, we're ahead on him as well. We could play, and then Algier too behind
Another
Love. So
handcuff.
just we could do a Tucker thing. We got all these rookie wide receivers in the mix. What do you think?
I think let's go wide receiver. Anyone in ADP that is earlier, I'd be fine with Judy. I know it's not the best solver score. Running backs, I don't really want the handcuffs to.
I think this is another tricky spot because it's like late. Wicks, the Texans wide receivers make sense here. I do really think running back is the spot we need, and yet we just don't have the play. So, I mean, we probably need to pull up like a Tucker, a Sampson, a Ray Davis here.
I'd be fine with Sampson or Tucker.
Yeah.
Either of those.
Let's do, did Judy. Let's do a Cleveland turn here.
I've personally been taking more Tucker on underdog just with, I think like his value will come in the goal line role, similar to how it was last season. And Sampson is more of a pass catcher. So, and I think that's why we have Tucker a little bit ahead, just in underdog ranks. I have been taking Sampson a lot, and on DraftKings for sure. His receiving metrics were pretty wild last year for a rookie running back. I think he had like a 29% target per out run and 1.6 yards per out run or something. Let me pull up the exact stats there, but he was really impressive. Yeah, 29% target per out run and 1.96 yard per out run as a rookie last year. In that Cleveland offense was pretty elite. And talking through that backfield on the AFC North pod, Todd Monken has almost always used like a pass specific RB2 in his offenses. So feel pretty good that he is going to maintain that role coming into this year with Judkins more as the early down pounder.
Yep. Yeah. And I think having that out, right, that he's not just a true zero where he has to have an injury to Gainwell or Bucky to have some usable weeks is pretty important. I think too, though, Sampson is intriguing. Obviously, the offensive output will probably be nowhere near the amount that the Bucs will be in scoring position. But, looking at how bad that offensive line is for Cleveland, if they have a sky high pass rate because they're in so many of these negative game scripts, like Sampson is kind of even a half point PPR scam. He could be that, hearkening back to the old days of Nyheim Hines, that old profile that kind of Gainwell turned into, where it's like you have a floor, and then because he is a younger guy that has a little bit of juice, maybe you get a big play mixed in here or there as well.
No doubt. And he was the RB1 and carries over Raheem Sanders last year when Judkins was injured down the stretch. He did not look great or was not efficient as a runner last year, but at that point in the season, the Browns O-line was an absolute catastrophe. Hopefully that's a little bit better this year. So I like betting on Sampson as a year two, kind of come up player. And like you said, does provide a little bit of a weekly floor there.
All right. Here's what we're looking at for landing this play in a 2-4-7-2. We got Hurts, Stroud, up to 4 running backs, Bijan, Love, Rodriguez, Sampson. Looking good at wide receiver, Nico, J-Mo, DK Metcalf, Michael Wilson, Jayden Higgins, Jalen McMillan, Jerry Jeudy. Of course, had those 2 early tight ends there, Loveland and Laporta. 3 more picks to go. Probably... Go ahead.
Are you fine with like a 2-5-9-2 here? Or what are you thinking in terms of how you want the final build to look?
Yeah, I mean, QB is pretty much wiped, so I don't think we're forcing anything there with Hurts and Stroud. I don't think even tight ends wiped, and I don't think we're forcing anything with Loveland and Laporta. The picks that make the most sense for us are kind of some of those wide receivers stacked, Wicks, Dell, Knoll. We just got to find another running back here.
Yeah. And we could almost go six running backs. Even though like the draft capital allocation isn't there for wide receiver, I do feel decent about the room. But yeah, I think running back here, I'm good with Davis or Katron Allen. I've been taking quite a bit of as well.
Yeah. Let's see here. Malik Washington goes. Let's go ahead and grab Davis first, and then we can kind of have the discussion of if we think 6 versus 8 is more important for us here.
Yeah. I think like, man, I don't love taking Philly wide receivers late, but like we don't have any stack partners with Hurts. So I'm kind of leaning towards going 9 wide receivers and adding someone like Wicks. And then just,
I think Wicks
kind of
is
figuring it out.
Yeah.
And yeah, top solver suggestion there too. I think sounds good.
I guess if we were able to get both Ray Davis and Tucker, I'd be like, let's push it. And then we could grab Noel as like a fallback option late. But in this spot, where we're now to the Katron Allen, the rookie thing, I say we just lock up that 8th stacked wide receiver.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I've loved Wicks over the years. He's been an amazing target earner when he's on the field for the Packers. So certainly, and that kind of goes in line, I guess, a little bit with our Lemon fade. And you can see, even though we're behind market on Lemon, it's not like we're super high on Wicks or Hollywood Brown or anything. I think we're just expecting a little bit less pass volume from this offense, which maybe is a mistake with Sean Mannion coming over. I think those are the toughest things to project in the offseason is, okay, really, how much is this offensive coordinator going to move the needle in terms of pass rate, how aggressive they're going to be in Philly. And that's something like week 1 and week 2, we can be like, oh man, this is, the Eagles offense is going to look quite a bit different than we had projected coming into the season.
Where are you at on the Dell and Noel thing? One of my portfolio goals has been to tilt more exposure to Noel because I'm a little too heavy on Dell. And I think there's enough uncertainty there. And then you start to layer in the draft percentage for these guys, the injury stuff with Dell. And I'm like, I'd actually rather be, I think, overweight Noel, at least head to head with Dell. How are you guys thinking through those two?
I've been taking both. I think that Jalen Noel is pretty much a slot only player. And given what the Texans did in the draft this year, they also signed a couple free agent tight ends. I think they are going to lean more into heavier personnel, especially when Cade Stover came back towards the end of last season. They had their highest rate of 12 personnel in the last, I think 6 games. He was back. So, in that regard, I started taking Dell quite a bit more, thinking, okay, he has a chance to get on the field in 2 wide receiver sets. I don't really think Noel does. And then given the strength of the Texans defense, I think Noel is going to be out there more in obvious passing situations. And so if they're not trailing a ton, then I'm not sure really where the playing time is going to come from. But ultimately, I think the roadblock for Noel last year was Christian Kirk was in that slot role. And obviously he's gone now. So I do think the runway is clear in that regard. And so I think they're both fine bets. I'm really eager to hear what Tank Dell's what his practice participation looks like in training camp here soon, just because that was such a massive injury. I mean, he tore his ACL, MCL, LCL, dislocated his kneecap, and had meniscus damage. So it sounds like he's playing, on a brand new knee essentially, or a fully repaired knee. Yeah, it's tough to know.
This is actually an interesting spot. It's can you find something to love with one of these running backs to justify the 6th, knowing we are a little weak in the back end there, or do we not fight it and we try to build out the strength at wide receiver with Noel as a stacked up triple stack?
I kind of like Jordan James here as another running back. You get some week 17 correlation on that Philly game, and then kind of build that out. Since we already have Higgins and Collins, I feel okay about the Texans stuff, but I don't know I'm fine with either ultimately.
No, I'm fine with that. I needed someone to, give me some confidence on one of these names. Obviously there's a ton of holes you can poke in them. I did think it's interesting. Have you guys come up on Giddens? Is that a new one to have him in the mix here as well? As far as I assume that's because you guys have confidence on him as the clear RB2 right now, and that McGowan's not going to be a factor.
We haven't changed anything on Giddens recently.
Okay.
I do think he is the favorite for the RB2 role there. So we have a pretty big gap between him and McGowan, but nothing's been changed input wise lately on him. He's someone I'm fine taking at the end of drafts. I know listening to Kerrane last year, he liked DJ Giddens as a prospect, and he just didn't get the opportunities because JT stayed healthy the full season. So I do think he's still in line as the RB2 there. And then, Jordan James was someone who on the ETE pods as well, I went into that not having a super strong take on James versus Kalen Black, but I do think if CMC went down, that Jordan James would be the favorite to be the workhorse, just because his pass catching profile is much better than Kalen Black's. Kalen Black hardly caught any balls at IU when he was there, whereas Jordan James had that role at Oregon. He's been in the system another year. So I've been leaning there at the end of drafts. And I think the 49ers, RB2 situation is one in training camp. If there's buzz around a certain guy, I think they're going to rise, I don't know, 40 spots maybe. I feel like they'll be going in the 150s, 160s. And so I've just, kind of been mixing up, taking stabs on both now that they're around past pick 200.
Yep. All right, this team is in the books. As we kind of said, it was, there were some trickier spots. It wasn't one of those where the draft kind of, made the picks itself for you, which sometimes happens. Sometimes you got to really work for it here. 2682. Let's see if we landed the plane. Jalen Hurts and CJ Stroud at quarterback. Ended up getting to those 6 running backs: Bijan, Jeremiyah Love, Rodriguez, Dylan Sampson, Ray Davis, Jordan James. Wide receivers: Nico, JMO, DK Metcalf, Michael Wilson, Jayden Higgins, Jalen McMillan, Jerry Jeudy, Dontavian Wicks. And then those 2 nice tight ends there, Colston Loveland and Sam Laporta. I'll go ahead and grab the solver report here, but how do you think we did?
I like it overall. Getting the Stroud double, I think, really made this team and made me feel a lot better about going kind of like the 2 tight ends early on. In hindsight, I kind of wish maybe we had one more wide receiver over a 6 running back, but ultimately just the way the board fell, I think that's fine. And I haven't been taking a bunch of Jeremiyah Love and Michael Wilson, so I think it's good to get those kind of correlated bets on the same team here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at we got bet on, who do we got here? Philly and Houston are obviously our team stacks, but multiple pieces there from Arizona, from Detroit. And getting a value on Goff sliding back would have been awesome, but I have no problem with, hey, we built out another stack. We still reap the benefits of correlation. You just need those spots where it's like CJ Stroud keeps pace, with Goff, or, in those really specific pod dynamics. But I have no problem just continuing to stack team bets like that.
Yeah, obviously not the smoothest there from ADP value, but I do think that's kind of what you get on the turns. Sometimes you'll get some great falls. Other times you kind of have to make the board your own and make some calls there. So, don't necessarily love seeing all that red in terms of ADP value at the end of drafts, but ultimately I'm pretty happy with how things landed at the end.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to that thing as well too of, we know ADP value is important, but ranking value is important too. And there are some picks you just have to make a team work. And I think we were getting behind at running back, like the Rodriguez pick is a good example of, okay, you reach 8.2 picks. That's our biggest reach other than Jeudy there. But man, like you can only push RB2 so much longer. And if you miss out on that pocket with the Minnesota backs, with a Rodriguez, you start to then say, okay, well, now we probably need 4 or 5 late running backs just to actually make this team work.
Absolutely. And we got to the point where the top 2 backs were handcuffs for Bijan and Jeremiyah Love, which isn't necessarily the best spot to be in either there. So yeah, the cliff at running back after kind of that C-Rod and JCM tier is pretty stark for sure.
Where do you have, because those are almost the exact spots where I like really don't want to take 2 running backs, where it's like your early investment in these other guys, and those players are going to have very little standalone value just because these are 3 down bell cows ahead of them. Is there a price on those guys? Like, all of a sudden Brian Robinson's at pick 190 or, Tyler Algier is at pick 185. Then is it like, all right, let's pair them together?
Well, there was a point where Algier was still on the board, and I think we were coming up on the Ray Davis pick at like 191. And I was literally about to ask you that same question. Like, I is this enough value, ADP value for you to take both? And I think it would be at that point. I would probably like to have it on a team I feel better about than the Cardinals. But in terms of if you got like 20 to 30 spots of ADP value and it's a position of need, I think it'd be hard to pass up in that scenario.
Yes. Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Yeah. So Algier goes off the board at 186. We pick Davis 191. I mean,
right. So like if he fell, like,
yeah,
it's hard to turn that down. And that's where it's like more of an art than a science. Like, I don't know exactly. Oh, you have to wait at least 14 spots past ADP to take like the handcuff RB2 or something. I think it's more of a feel spot.
And even like setting aside, Algier as a younger guy with more juice than Brian Robinson, I do think I like that pairing more than the Robinson Bijan, because there could be the baton type of thing with Algier where he's in a true split and he's getting the goal line carries and more involved. And then we slowly see Love come on. Like we saw that, Jonathan Taylor, I think, was a good comparable his rookie year where he was undeniably more talented than Nyheim Hines, but they were still using Hines pretty, frequently, even through week 11, 12 of his rookie year. So I do think those are scenarios where we were talking, how do you get a Jeremiyah Love team to the finals when you're likely sacrificing some early season projection relative to the other 2-3 turn picks? maybe a guy like Algier helps you accomplish that in a very straightforward way.
That's a great point. And, I think Pete, you know, ball, man, I've been listening to the So You Think You Can Tout episode. So, I survived a 3-night weekend of solo dad duty. My wife, is the maid of honor for her sister, and they had a bachelorette party this weekend. So Saturday night, I got my daughter down to bed, and I was sitting on the couch, whipped up some underdog drafts, and then I pulled up So You Think You Can Tout at like 9:15 p.m. on a Saturday, and I was like, man, here I am. Life has changed quite a bit in the last few months, but I did think it was a great episode. That's been a great show, and for me especially this summer, doing the ET pods and kind of being the host of that's more of a new role for me. And listening to you and Davis kind of talk through like the differences of being a guest, like on the show this morning, it's so nice just to come on and know you're going to lead the ship here. And I just have to throw off some takes and some projections, but you are an amazing host and a ball knower. So don't sell yourself short in any facet these days.
Well, I appreciate that. And that's been one of the fun things too. And, I've joked around how, the show hasn't found as wide of an audience as I hoped, but people who are content creators, I think, have gotten a lot out of it, because there isn't really, we'll occasionally talk in long form about stuff, but to actually put the stuff under the microscope of like, these are the skills, these are how you improve them. And then to have such a wide variety of guests with different skills, like even going from Mayo to Silva and Levitan, like really different styles. And so that has been really cool to hear other content creators say how much they've picked up from it. And I do think like you're an awesome example of someone who I've even noticed listening to you, like the reps. And I think even why you're like, hey, I want to come on these shows, whether it's with me or subbing in for Levitan, is because you just know those reps are going to get you to the spot you want to be as a broadcaster. And I think it's been cool to see you even step up, and like even having you hosting the ET pod. Like I think just you as a broadcaster, you've like improved exponentially since the first few times I heard you on the mic. Yeah,
thanks. Yeah, it's been massive. Getting the reps and just knowing how to prepare. I think I'd be curious your level of kind of like notes or when you go into shows, like how much do you have to prep between shows? Because for me at this point, like I'm prepping a ton, and I think way more as the host, knowing kind of, okay, like this conversation could go 3 or 4 directions, whereas as like the guest, I feel like you're often only talking about kind of 1 or 2 points, or exactly what you want to say about a specific player or spot. Whereas host, you have to kind of be able to just like riff on anything that comes up, which is admittedly the hardest part for me, is taking like a conversation that I don't know exactly where it's going and trying to like to relate that back to the topic at hand. I'm curious if you continue to prep more for shows, or at this point, just given all the reps that you've had, you feel pretty good that your kind of weekly work leading up is the prep and inherently.
Yeah, I think and I've mentioned this on the show a few times, writing the Fantasy Life newsletter, that really, like, my whole riff on the Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason stuff was I written a newsletter about that backfield a week and a half ago. And when I was starting to talk about the Jeremiyah Love thing and benchmarking him to the Genty stuff, I had written a newsletter about that. So I'm recalling research I did for that. And that really, really helps, because can I vibe base and, aggregate thoughts and takes I hear from other people? Sure, I can do that. But having written that and done the research, and then basically being able to just pull it from the back of my head when it comes up, has been such a nice thing to actually bring stats, be a little bit more well prepared. So yeah, for me, the research is the writing and the stuff I do, and then the conversations. I think for you though, establish the edge. Like, it's so specific with the projections and how granular you guys are getting, that by necessity, it has to be very well researched, because you can't have a vibes-based conversation about a fucking projection. Like, it has to be steeped in the numbers there. And you're obviously going back and forth with Gretch. And I think you guys balance that well, because the Gretch ability to kind of not necessarily even push back, but see your projections in a different light, that's what makes the pod so good. But I do think there's a difference. Like that pod, if I was doing that pod, I would have to be staring at the projections a lot more. I would make notes on what are the things that are interesting here, what goes against how the market thinks. But yeah, with a lot of the stuff I do with the drafts, it's just like we get in all these spots where we talk about these different teams, players, values, and just being steeped in it and writing about it and thinking about it all the time. Generally, you'll have enough nuggets to pull when stuff comes up without, concrete prep.
No doubt. And ultimately, projections work is ball knowing in a lot of sense. You have to understand the teams and context. And like I said, with the Eagles, for an example, you have to try and project, okay, how are these offensive coordinators going to impact the offensive scheme and stuff like that. Takes a lot of ball knowledge. So yeah, in deep weeds on the projections, but like for the most part, I'm more curious in picking Gretsch's brain on like how he thinks these offenses are just going to play out schematically, and there's so much coach movement nowadays. I think it's upwards of like 20 new play callers this year in the NFL. So that just adds a whole nother element where it's like, sure, we can talk about the nitty gritty projection numbers, but we also have to understand the context of the team and really try and dial that in as well.
Yeah. And I think it's fun. I talk about that, there's lots of good analysis taking part right now. And I love the ETE pod as this kind of like zoom out, pull back moment, because, I'm guilty of this as anybody, of like, you get stuck with pattern matching. We like thinking about, themes year to year. It's like, who's going to be this year's George Pickens? It's like, oh, Jalen Waddle looks a lot like that. Sometimes then getting into the numbers, thinking through how this actually plays out in practice, it can kind of snap you out of using those things as a crutch and really have to think individually about these players in these situations. And so, yeah, it's a fun reset here. And now it's going to be the perfect calm before the storm, where we actually get concrete information from training camp in preseason. And this year, man, I keep saying it feels like we are set to have the draft board just really shuffled up, because there's so much, I would say, like, not resistance. Like, you could tell me a wide receiver shoots up 50 spots, a running back shoots up 60 spots, because these tiers and these walls feel so long to me that it's just like, I think we're due for some really fun movement here within the next month.
No doubt that, as well as all these free agent wide receivers signing, is going to shift things a ton. We hit on that during the show as well. It's like, man, because not only on those individual players themselves, but obviously the teams they land on, we're going to be changing projections, and there are some big names still out there. I mean, and it's even like I don't think Ayuk is going to sign with the team at this point, but like he still could, and yeah. Like at that point you'd have to take him seriously, because like Kittle, in one of Kittle's interviews, he said, I think it was like last September or October, like he's out there training with him, and like he looked explosive at that point in time. So man, I agree that the board could get shaken up in a major way here, and finally we're almost to that time. It's awesome.
It's awesome. A couple quick hitters here from the chat. John Warner wants to know, Dank, did you have to sign a contract to be able to use the hello and welcome to establish the edge?
Yeah. So I mentioned I just had my first kid. I had to sign over rights to my second kid to Levitan there to be able to chime in on the old hello there. But I think it was probably worth it.
I think Leone's ears were burning because he fired off this tweet about an hour and a half ago. I guess maybe this was before you came on, but he says, I've been quiet this offseason due to a combination of taking a little extra time off to touch grass and devote the time I've been working to back in stuff for ETR. Just got home from vacation and getting settled, but you'll see me back in my more usual offseason ETR role over the next few weeks. So Leone fans rejoice with that announcement. There you go.
Love to see it. And this is, I tweeted out today as well. This is my 5-year anniversary of starting full-time at ETR. And since then, we've created a full data science department that Leone, like helps oversee and is doing all these off-season projects. Like the off-season is like a quiet time for me specifically in terms of, off-season projects. But like I was talking to Connor, who's on our data science team, and he's like, oh man, the off-season is my busiest time, because they're continuously running, updates to the models and algorithms and doing all the back testing stuff. And so Leone, has been messaging me and Jack and Slack kind of like, hey, I looked into, certain spots that were under projecting, like, RB target share and the wide receiver 3 against like weak defenses. And, so all these things that he's testing in the off season, that wasn't a thing for us 4 or 5 years ago. But now, having built out this data science team and Leone kind of being the head of that, more of the off-season stuff for him, I think is focused more on improving our projections for the upcoming season and like in season for DFS.
One more final question for you on the way out. Multiple people excited about this one. Any advice for the NFL projection open position ETR is hiring for? This is a good one for wannabe applicants.
Yeah, this is, I would say not a ton of projection, or excuse me, not a ton of advice in terms of like what to do right now. We got a ton of amazing applications. I think for the most part, like what we talked about in terms of like reps and just getting hands-on experience with this stuff is such a massive separator when when you're applying to these jobs, because everyone loves fantasy football and like has had success in their home leagues, or maybe had one big win in DFS or best ball or something. But I think having hands-on experience, saying, hey, even I gave a shot at like building my own NFL projections model. Like I remember back when I interviewed at ETR, it was actually for an NBA role back in towards the end of 2020. It was like, hey, I built my own NBA DFS projections model. It's not super sophisticated. Like I was just multiplying like minutes projections by their fantasy points per minute output and doing like ranks that way. But it at least like showed initiative. And I had worked through a full, Excel spreadsheet of like building out all these teams and players and having things linked and having like a leaderboard by position that of my best values and best projected plays and just having anything concrete that you can say, hey, this is a problem I wanted to solve, and here's how I went about it. XYZ is probably the best thing you can come into these, applications or interview process with, is really just trying to have some hands-on experience with the task at hand.
For sure. Yeah. And it's crazy. I mean, I've never done projections. Like one very simple example, I know when we do our FFPC playoff stuff and I watch Pat do the ownership projections for those, and just this concept of a trickle down effect of where you change one thing and then it's like, well, where is that coming from? And the same thing I assume with you guys, where it's like, oh, everyone's like, you're too low on this guy, you're too low. And it's like, okay, you come up on him, but at the expense of you. Or are you now saying their pass rate is 2 percentage points higher than what the baseline or the average would be? It's like, you have to make sense of it holistically. And I think that process is so fascinating, and why, it's so easy to nitpick a single input or a single player, but not realizing the butterfly effect it has on the overall picture. And you guys have a lot of good historical data of how this stuff actually has to work to make any kind of logical sense.
For sure. And those problems only arise when you're trying to do that process or tackle that problem. You come up with way more questions and then solutions on how to think through things and fix those issues. So it's just, I can't suggest enough, just like trying to do things on your own and tackle it, or like for you on the So You Think You Can Tout stuff, it's like, man, just start streaming and getting reps in and like building that up and take videos of yourself. Cause yeah, you're going to be uncomfortable at the start. It's going to, it may not even be super impactful for like your personal process at that point in time, but for the, at the end of the day, you're going to build super valuable experience. And that's going to be way easier to sell to someone, to be like, hey, this is what I've actually done. Not, I think I could probably help you. I've thought about this in this way. It's like, no, like, having the hands-on experience and going through the troubleshooting and the problem solving on those tasks is massively valuable.
It is true. It's funny, to even tie it into the So You Think You Can Tout, when we had a lot of the submissions, and it wasn't that you had to have been doing this already to have a chance, but there is an element of show, don't tell. And a lot of people, I think, with applications say like, oh, like you said, I think I'd be good at this, or I have the skill set to be good with this. Ultimately, the most powerful thing for you guys is to see some kind of proof of concept, and whether that's public or something you've worked on privately, of just saying like, I've already done this thing. Because there's, from an employer standpoint, you guys might be able to bring in a really talented person, but if it requires like 6 months of like hands-on training and getting you caught up, like that might defeat the purpose of the role in the first place, which is to come on and immediately allow you guys to hit the ground running and scale up your process. For
sure. And I think timing of this is super impactful as well. Like my credentials when, getting hired at ETR 5 years ago was way different than I think you would need now, just with the evolution of the fantasy football industry and, with props and betting, and just like how much this has proliferated over the last handful of years has really changed the game in terms of like the kind of the credentials you need to be hired somewhere. So honestly, a lot of these applications I'm reading, I'm like, man, should I even have the job that I have? Like there's some crazy qualified applicants. Makes you second guess, all that, how lucky I am to be in this position, for sure.
Yeah, I just had Lord Reeves on After Dark the other night, and that's always like a thing that comes up when I talk to him every year. He's like, man, these young guns, these people coming up, and like they're constantly pushing me to be better. And he's like, I'm thankful I have this job and kind of my position, as a veteran in the industry. But man, like it is really, really competitive, and it only gets more and more competitive. Sam's going to join us here in a sec, but I guess one more comment on that with this position. I do assume like you guys have a lot of the guardrails set up with the projections. You kind of know, where you want to be. I assume, tell me if I'm wrong, that a lot of the job is grinding all the news, all of the nuggets, figuring out how to make these micro adjustments, or is it more on the technical side? You guys are looking to back test things and look at different correlations, and that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. In terms of one thing I'll say about Taylor KB, our CEO, is there's no stone he'll leave unturned or question unasked. He's like probably the most curious person I've ever met. And so, people can apply like for this job, but they might say, hey, I've done this work in the past, or like, I'm a full-time data scientist at this point in time. Like I've done a lot of modeling and backtesting stuff. So it's like, even though you may be hired to help more like tinker with our projections or grind news, there's always facets that can get strung out from the, kind of, I guess, base role at ETR. There's always project. If you have a project that say, hey, I really want to investigate this, that's always up for grabs as well, or open to investment there. But this job specifically is more of kind of like the grinding news, tracking updates from teams, injury reports, and then being able to tweak like our projections if needed. And a lot of it is, right now it's Jack and I on the player inputs and Leone, and there's been times in recent years where it's like, I'm at a wedding, or I get sick for a weekend and we need someone to fill in, and we don't really have a body to fill in. So it's also kind of like a safety blanket in terms of like, if anything, if we were to miss time for any reason, that there would be someone that would be able to step into that role a little bit more seamlessly.
Well, beautiful. Dank, we're going to bring Sam Sherman on here. Fun chopping it up with you. All kinds of good conversation there throughout this episode. And check out Establish the Edge. Those podcasts have been awesome. Still working my way through them. They're opuses. So I have to, I'm like 2.5 episodes through as I work through it. Anything else you want to shout out here before you head out?
No, man, this was awesome. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at Mark Dank. Obviously, those Establish the Edge podcasts you can hear. I think we're up to like 15 hours of total content or something at this point through 6 episodes. We've got 2 more coming this week, the AFC East and NFC East. We are going to close out that series here this week. So that's been truly awesome. I've learned so much. Definitely, if you have the time, highly recommend listening to those. It's been awesome insight for me, and it sounds like the listeners have enjoyed it as well. So, and then training camp coming up here soon. Just feel free to head to Establish to Run, subscribe to our draft kit. There's tons of good stuff in there. You can find all my work there, where I'm going to be starting to do some team preview work, as well as I do a kicker and defense article every offseason. I know people are waiting on pins and needles for that. I think we've got Brandon Thorne's offensive line rankings coming out here soon. So tons of great stuff over at ETR. Absolutely.
All right, just drop the handle in the chat at Mark Dank. We will catch you later, Mark Dank, and welcoming to the stage, Mr. Sam Sherman, ready to draft with me. How are you doing on this Monday morning, sir?
I'm great, Pete. Excited to be back on. I caught the end of that conversation with Mark. I think I said it last week, but want to say again that those Established Edge podcasts with him, Jack, and Gretch have been awesome. So strongly recommend folks check those out.
For sure. Yes, they are. They're, essential listening here, especially like, if you're drafting teams, even in July. I know there's only so many more times we can say that, like drafting in August, that's what everybody does, but it's such a great palate cleanser and challenging kind of our priors here. Sam, I got us in a draft. That's what we do here. We got the 112, so we'll be double tapping from this side of the board. I just drafted from the 102 with Dank. How are you feeling about this spot?
Good. I've been liking the back half of the board. I think you either get one of the wide receivers to fall, which is kind of fun, like Jefferson or Lamb sometimes slide back, or you can double tap running back, which I think is a good structural start this year. So I'm enjoying those back half starts for sure.
Beautiful. Are you starting to ramp up your drafting a little bit? Or are you kind of still chugging along at your usual pace?
Usual pace for sure. I still am kind of waiting for more news from training camps, preseason, and so on to kick in before I kind of accelerate my draft. So I've been slowly trickling them in, 1 or 2 a week. Nothing crazy. I'm not like you and Kerrane with hundreds of slow drafts at once. I'm not built that way. So been a pretty slow trickle for me right now.
You know what? I haven't quite hit, we say slow draft hell. I know Dave is doing streams over at the Solver. He calls it slow draft heaven. This is where I'm worried. Like, cause I'm at my desk so much right now and I have my 3 times in the day where I do it. It's been easy. I'm starting to think like, oh, this weekend I'm going to the beach and like I have that 2 p.m. window where I know I'm going to be on the clock in 14 drafts, or in 2 weeks we're doing the ship chasing meetup. And I'm like, I know on Sunday we're going to be out on the lake and I'm going to be on the clock in 21. Those are the only spots I'm worrying about. But maybe I just plan ahead. Maybe I set the queue, I get the ranks in there, and I just trust if I don't have one perfectly hand curated selection, I'll live, Sam.
I think that's when, like, I remember specifically 2 or 3 years ago, I was golfing one day and then I checked like my slow drafts. I was in like 100 at a time. I had auto picked on like 15 of them and I had like 60 teams on the clock while I was out supposed to be enjoying my day golfing. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm just going to do the fast drafts. But yeah, if you plan ahead, like I didn't, you can make it work. Okay. Jefferson might slide all the way. That would be fun.
Yeah, let's see what DQ1 does here at the 112. Assume he's going to time out on Jefferson. Yeah, he does. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at the wall of green. Pick your favorite pairing here.
Yeah, I think we talked about this last week. I'm a little bit lower on Genty, so can we go Barkley first and then think about?
Should I check real quick what we did last week?
Yeah. If you can do it.
I want to say we went Cook and Barkley last week. So, but he's off the board, so we don't have to worry about that.
I'm good with Walker or Genty here. If you want to get Genty, I'm fine with it. I'd personally be Walker. Good with either though.
No, let's do it. I was just looking at my combo exposure here. I have Genty paired with Barkley a decent amount and not at all with Walker. So let's do Barkley Walker. I mean, this is a fun pairing because there is a wide range of outcomes for these guys who might not catch as many passes as some of these other guys. And yet the touchdown ceiling is just massive for them. Barkley coming off a year where he only scored 7. I think the year before when he almost hit 2,000 yards, he was at 13. And it's like, man, these guys can swing wildly of like, they look like they should have been the 105 or they look like they should have been at the back end of round 3, depending on how many touchdowns they score.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think like a little bit for me, and I think this is probably what's showing up in the ETR projections as well. Because if I'm not mistaken, they have Genty like a little bit lower than Barkley, Walker, Henry, just slightly. I think it's all the same tier. Like you just look at like implied NFL look ahead lines for like the Chiefs and Eagles. They're in the top. Both those offenses are in the top 12 in terms of projected points per game at around 24. This is just taking Vegas odds. This is from Sharp Football Analysis and projecting them forward. Raiders are all the way down at 28th. They're next to teams like Dolphins, Browns, Jets, Cardinals, like in that tier. So that's really it for me. Like I totally get it on Genty. Like the receiving ceiling could be a lot higher. You can believe in the offense with Mendoza and Kirk Cousins there as like a solid quarterback too. I can see how it works out, but I am just a little bit worried with Genty. We get the repeat of last season's kind of Raiders disaster that I don't think that's as likely with these other guys, but it's very close in this tier of running backs to be honest.
Yeah. And then the question just becomes, how much do you prefer Walker to a Hampton, to a Chase Brown, to a Henry? And it gets into that conversation of, do you start mixing up the combos more? Yeah. Or are you sacrificing a little too much that it's just extra fancy? I mean, it's hard because I do prefer Genty and Walker. I kind of have a tier break there, but then man, Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, it's a tricky spot in drafts to know how to play it from a portfolio perspective.
I agree. Like those guys are all so close. So I think I've mostly been trying to mix up what I do there. Like I'm not trying to end up with James Cook and Barkley over and over and over again, because that would probably be my top 2 if they're both available. But I think that's the play. I don't feel super strongly about coming out way ahead on some of those guys and really low on others.
It's a good time to shout out the solver tool there for, it flagged that I'm always pairing Barkley with Genty there. Obviously now when I do Barkley and Walker here in the combo tool, it's going to be none because it's the first time I've paired these together, but you can still toggle off, see who Walker, I haven't paired Walker or haven't drafted Igbuka with Walker at all, which makes sense because I only have 2% Igbuka, but highly recommend taking advantage of this. You can really slice and dice your team and your portfolio as you go along.
Yeah, I like that. I didn't see. So it's that second column, that like orange text that appears.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I like that. That's a fun feature. We'll probably get ETN's the guy, I guess, who's sliding a bit on the news. I imagine he'll probably come all the way back to us. We'll see who else we have here. Are you reacting much to the like Kamara extension news? Were you already kind of factoring that in, Pete?
It's funny you say that because I'm going to write about it let's make these picks here.
Okay, yeah.
Kerrane and ETN go. So we are by ADP looking at Lad, Javonte Neighbors, Javonte Wilson, Lad by ETR ranks. Who are your favorites here?
Let's go with the wide receiver. Maybe start with Lad. I think I kind of want to do 2 wide receivers here over taking a third running back. Do you have a strong preference here? Trying to see if there's tiebreakers. I'd probably be like Tet in a vacuum. Waddle I like a lot too. Probably those are my top 2 guys.
Do you wanna pull up Waddle here? He's definitely going in this range more and more lately.
Yeah, I'm good with Waddle. Let's do Waddle.
All right, we can pull Waddle up here. On the ETN thing. So it was the classic thing where it's like, I think for about the past month, it seemed most likely that Kamara was going to stay restructured. Like basically what happened, it seems like was probably the smart money. And so you think in your head, okay, drafters are baking that in and they're still content. And then it happens. And now ETN's falling. I have been willing to grab him in the early 4th. Now I do think it complicates the upside stuff. I mean, Kamara had an 11% target share last year. He was targeted on 16% of his routes. And I also think they'll trust him a little bit in the goal line. Like if they're in a hurry up situation and it's like, are they really taking Alvin Kamara off the field just to bring in ETN to be the goal line back? I do think it hurts him a little bit. The question is, where's the tipping point where ETN's overvalued, undervalued? I don't know if I've squared that yet.
Yeah. I think so for me, I totally agree with those points. I think it was much cleaner where I'd say like 2 or 3 months ago, it seemed very likely that Kamara would be gone. I think for like the last 6 weeks, I've been operating under the assumption that Kamara was still going to be around, like looking into his contract more. There wasn't really an easy out. So I think it should have already been priced in that this was going to happen. So I think like, I don't have a super hot take on ETN. I think where he goes here, like late 3rd, early 4th, seems like solid value to me. I still think they paid him enough. Kamara looked so washed last year. Is Kamara still going to be probably the RB2 and have like somewhat of a role? Yes, but I don't think anyone was expecting ETN to have like a CMC level workload anyways. So many of these guys cede touches to an RB2. And I don't think like the name value of Kamara, I think is like bigger than like the role he's actually going to have on this team. So yeah, boring take where I think where he went here is probably about right.
When I was doing my research on it this morning, the other thing that was kind of interesting to me, so ETN was involved in the passing game last year, but it was 94% of it was on early downs because they would bring LeQuint Allen in those long down and distance situations. And so then I think you have to unpack, was that a Liam Cohen thing where he was more willing to throw to the back on early downs? Is that going to be the case in New Orleans quite as much? Because if he had a similar role on early downs in the passing game, I think it makes his price tag look a lot better. If he gets pigeonholed more into a rusher, then you're probably asking a lot of the offense for goal line opportunities and big plays.
Yeah, that's a good point. It'll be interesting to see. I think that the interesting like follow-up question I'd have would be like, how much did ETN see in pass down work like the seasons prior to Liam Cohen to try to like tease out a little bit? Was that just like a LeQuint Allen Cohen thing, or was that like something that ETN is like structurally had issues with getting that playing time over the course of his career? But I think I think ETN has like always been somewhat like overrated as a pass catcher in his like prospect profile days. Like I don't think it fully translated, but he's still, I think, like fully capable of, catching 40 to 50 balls this year. Like I assume he did something similar to that last year as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that's hard with him, it's like, man, because I think we all agree, if there was no concerns about Josh Jacobs, it's like, it's kind of absurd to take ETN over Jacobs. And so now we're having to deal through, how do we price the uncertainty with Jacobs? I mean, I think you could even point to Montgomery as an arbitrage Jacobs too, of like, man, the roll, the goal line, going to catch some balls. Like, you really have to start to feel really good about some specific elements of ETN's profile to routinely take him over some of those guys. Yeah.
Yeah. It does kind of, it is sort of a long tier of guys like Javonte all the way through. Bucky just went, okay, we're on the clock here.
Moore, Rome, Brian Thomas, Price by rank, Moore, Price, Daniels, Tyson.
Let's do Tyson.
All right, we'll grab Tyson here. I do like him. We've been talking a lot about New Orleans. So then you got DJ Moore as the faller. You got Price as the top running back, or you can just say, I feel like with LAC, Denver, New Orleans, I kind of want to wait on quarterback. So like Moore.
Yeah,
Price.
I would do Price. I think I'll do Price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk
Price
about
is another
him.
Tricky one. Yeah.
What's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he's tricky. I think like there's been a lot of reports coming out about him being part of a committee, I think, which is like slightly had his ADP falling in the past couple days. I am just kind of like defaulting to him being a pretty good pick in this range, just based on the fact that we're talking about a guy who's a first-round pick in the NFL draft. I get there's concerns with his prospect profile. Still, at the end of the day, first-round pick is great draft capital for running back. He's going to a team that just won the Super Bowl, is going to be projected to win a lot of their games, top 10, in Super Bowl odds, all of that. So they should be in positive game scripts. And at the end of the day, the running back competition, while there's like some confusing pieces here and there, it's still a very weak running back room. It's George Olani, who basically didn't see any significant playing time outside of a couple of games last year where Charbonnet was hurt. You have Emmanuel Wilson, career plotter on the Packers, and then Zach Charbonnet coming off a very late ACL tear, where actually his surgery was a month after his ACL tear. So you look at return to play timelines, like kind of best case scenario, from a normal ACL timeline would be like week 10, week 12, something like that. So it's a really weak competition, and I don't think Price necessarily is guaranteed to start the season in a huge role, but I think he really could pull away from the other guys here. I think also like his collegiate production profile has been nitpicked so much, but at the end of the day, he was sharing a backfield with Jeremiyah Love. I think his like Achilles injury he had in college kind of explains why he didn't transfer away from the program while he was undergoing that rehab. So I think the production like can be excused away a decent bit just by the really strong competition. So yeah, I'm kind of just going back to the fundamentals with him. Good offense, weak competition, first round pick. Like I think you're getting pretty fair value in the 6th round.
Yeah, I do too. I think he, we've talked I don't know, we did this on the Fantasy Life show. We've done on Ship Chasing before. Like if you could know the stat line of one player this year, who would you pick? Jadarian Price would be a really good one, I think, to know, because it would tell you information probably about Sharps, about the offensive success on the whole, because man, the range of outcomes is so wide. Because I do think there are scenarios where, and again, he's a different player than RJ Harvey, but another guy we were really excited to draft, on a team that was going to run the ball well, have a defined role. And then you kind of see the downside scenarios play out. But there are the scenarios where it is like a 1-for-1 replacement for Kenneth Walker and he hits the ground running and you're like, holy shit, they let us get this guy in the earlier, even sometimes mid 6th round. So I think for best ball specifically, I'm in at these prices. Obviously this isn't a redraft show. I think he's a lot trickier for redraft and how hard it could be to actually know when to start him when he's constantly facing the early season squeeze and a potential late season squeeze. But I do think you just clackety clack roll the dice at these prices in best ball.
Yep. I think that's a good summary.
All right, we got the 7-8 turn here, 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers. We could think about some stacking stuff here. Herbert with Ladd, Rico, Jordan Addison, Sutton here as well.
I like the Herbert call.
Yeah.
We're not going to get another chance at him. And
would you set up a double stack with Sutton and Waddle, or do you think those guys are kind of negatively correlated?
I don't think they're that negatively correlated with Sutton all the way in the 80s here. So I kind of like that. He's top by ADP, right?
Yeah.
I don't see anyone else jumping out. So yeah, I don't have a lot of Sutton, but I think with Waddle, yeah, I mean, the wide receivers in the same team thing, there's like always an element to like their true, probably season-long ceiling cases being like a little bit inversely correlated. Like they both can't be top 12 wide receivers, but I think there is something to like where their median cases are probably more positively correlated. If Denver is just playing good offense this year, Bo Nix takes another leap in year 3. I think it's totally fine. And yeah, I don't think I think like all the Sutton fall off has been like priced in and accounted for at this point. So I think it's totally fine.
Yep. All right. Here's the squad so far. We started Barkley and Walker. We come back with 3 wide receivers, Ladd, Waddle, Tyson, Jadarian Price, the running back there in the early 6. We stack up Ladd with Herbert and then grab Sutton here as well. Yeah, I do always think that's like one of the toughest decisions. I feel like a Metcalf and Pittman would be another one where you kind of worry of like, man, if Pittman is Rodgers, Binky and stuff, does that really hurt Metcalf? But then you can just as easily spin it and say, well, what if Rodgers has a bounce back year? What if the offense is scoring a lot of touchdowns? What if Pittman opens up Metcalf for more one-on-one coverage that he offsets a lack of volume with higher TD efficiency? And then you just get back to the fundamentals of, don't you just want to bet on the offense being good and trust it's going to work out?
Exactly. And you can also see like this offense, it's not an offense that is going to use a lot of tight ends. Like there's not a big target share draw coming from there. The peripheral wide receiver pieces, there's some depth there, but Mims, Franklin, and Bryant aren't like massive target earners either. So I think you can see a world where it consolidates a bit on these 2 guys. So yeah, I like going, like, I think I lean towards going with the teammate pairings more than avoiding them, especially in best ball.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, I think you pick your spots, right? Like we looked at it, he was top available ADP. You know, normally they probably don't line up quite as much just because we pulled up Waddle here. So this is kind of a unique spot to do it. Where it's probably not one you're going to go out of your way to do. It's probably pretty comparable to like Lamb and Pickens as well, right? I mean, different players and not as good of players, but kind of a similar dynamic where you can certainly see scenarios where they both hit if the offense is good enough.
Yeah, for sure. I guess the question will be here. If we want to do the Nix thing, we probably have to pull trigger at our next pick, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
And I took a glance at it when we did it. ADP 107 for Nix. We pick at 108. So like that's a clean spot there. No bye week overlap. So I do think we entertain that. And the other options as far as ADP, Wilson, Myers, Kenny Gainwell, Rashad White, Golden. We got the 3 running backs, 4 wide receivers, and Herbert.
Yep. I don't love Michael Wilson, but when he falls to like 110, I'm kind of like, sure, okay, Wilson's gone, so we don't have to have that conversation.
I'm going to put Nix in the queue to buy his time.
Yeah, definitely Nix. Man, the other spot is tough.
It's basically like, where are you at on Kittle right now? Because that would be another if you wanted to get some tight end juice here. We're done with quarterback for now. It's either like Jacoby, Gainwell, White, or Kittle probably.
Yeah. I'd probably go Jacoby and just like I know it's not a huge ADP difference, but I'm good. If you want to do Kittle though, I'm good with it. Your call.
All right, let's do Kittle. Let's do Kittle.
I know you like Kittle, so I'm totally happy to grab him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's one too. I do really think Kittle's just going to be this slow and steady riser ADP
Yeah,
wise.
I can see that. Yeah.
I really think when we continue to get the, and who knows, we've talked a lot about the week 1 thing. Is he going to take that 19-hour flight to Australia or whatnot?
Yeah.
If all of a sudden we're like, yeah, you get that news blurb like Kittle's flying to Australia for this game, it's like, all right, we're not going to have triple-digit Kittle anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the Kittle thing is so interesting. There's like the Achilles thing. Like my default reaction when I have like a player coming off an Achilles is always to like want to rule them out. But I guess a couple things. Like one, there's the reports of his rehab going really well. Apparently the tear was either lower or higher in the tendon, something like that makes it better. I don't know the details, right? But there's something about the injury that allegedly is more amenable to a recovery. And then also, like, I think there's a bit of a positional difference we've seen on these Achilles tears. Like with running backs, it's been really brutal. But with like wide receivers, there's been examples of guys coming back from it and being okay. Demaryius Thomas is one. And I think even like Odell like came back for a little bit. Was on the Rams maybe. Anyways, like I don't think we have a ton of data on like tight ends coming back from this injury. Part of me does worry about like Kittle being so reliant on after the catch explosiveness and that being like a challenge with the Achilles. But if like the part of the game that's just like, hey, being on the same page with Brock Purdy, finding the soft spot in the zone, knowing the playbook super well, like that part of it, I don't think is going to go away, even if he loses some explosiveness. So I've been generally like open to Kittle around here. Yeah.
And I twisted the guy's arm to add him to our FFPC main event team the other day. And I think it's a different conversation there where, I can see the skepticism of like the 1.5 tight end, scamming there isn't quite as evident. But again, on Underdog, where we know how much touchdowns can swing stuff in just being that dude in the red zone for an offense that should be top 5, top 6. I think you have a lot of room for error at these prices. And then you just get the free roll of what if the yards after catch ability does come back sooner rather than later.
Yeah. I mean, we're taking him next to Travis Kelce, who's not explosive after the catch, and everyone knows that. So it's not like he's priced up too high.
So
Kyler still being on the board is interesting. Oh, he just goes.
He just goes. No, I was just going to give the quick table set. So we have Herbert with Ladd. We have Bo Nix with both Waddle and Sutton. We got those 3 running backs, Barkley, Walker, Price, along with McConkey, Waddle, Sutton. We did add on Jordan Tyson there in the mid-range, and then Kittle, our first tight end. So we're pretty balanced here positionally, which is kind of our MO when we draft together. By rank, we have a couple tight end values. I'd also just float on a Herbert team, like the Keaton Mitchell thing right around ADP. Could be a fun ad to compound the Herbert bet, but what catches your eye here?
I like that call. I don't have a lot of Keaton. He's been rising. I know ETR is a bit lower on him, but I think it makes sense on this team. And then could you toggle to the wide receivers of who else is around?
It's Diggs, Hunter, Omar, Cooper, McMillan. Do you still like the Diggs thesis?
I think I'd go Kincaid over Diggs at tight end. Yeah. Just take the rank value. I don't know, man. Like I guess I'll be honest. I haven't been totally plugged into the news on Diggs. There's been like other off-field allegations at this point, right? That have surfaced. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm honestly not up to date on it. I haven't heard a lot of analysis that it's actually going to impact anything. So I don't know if it's a blind spot for me or not, but I just like similar with the Jacob stuff. I just always default to nothing's going to happen to these guys, and Diggs is going to sign somewhere in the next couple of weeks, and he's going to shoot up 2 rounds at ADP.
Yeah, I think that's like the right. So I think the only thing that makes me like a bit more nervous is when a guy is not on a team already. That's just like another PR hurdle that the team has to worry about. Like if Diggs was already signed, I don't think I would care about the civil suits or whatever he's facing, but I don't know. Part of me is just like, does a team not want to deal with the PR of that? But yeah, When Diggs, it's inevitable. Like as long as you're certain Diggs is going to play in the NFL this year, it's almost like guaranteed closing line value to take him where he is now. So you're just dodging the slight risk that he's retired or whatever.
And I will say, I think you can make the argument either way. So Kincaid, a pretty nice upside swing at tight end in that range. Can you arbitrage, Diggs production later with the Juwan Jennings? Obviously you have the Judys, the Cups, etc. You could probably say the same thing for Kincaid. Like, can you get a Gadsden coming back? Can you get, a Sadiq? So I think it's probably close from a 2v2, but man, Kittle Kincaid at these prices, it's kind of like what if it's, you could dream on these two profiles hitting and basically getting elite tight ends at non-elite prices.
100%. And what I like, again, tight end, sometimes at the end of the day, if you don't hit on the elite ones, it's just about, are the tight ends on offenses that score touchdowns, and do you luck box into touchdowns at the right week? Betting on a Bills and 49ers player to do that is as good a way to do that as any. So yeah, that's where it's like, you're thinking about Kincaid versus I don't know, Isaiah Likely or Chigakonkwo, whatever other guys that are going semi in that range. It's like, what is the weekly touchdown projection for the, I was thinking Okonkwo's in the Titans, he's in the Commanders now, so that's a bad example. But for the Giants, for Isaiah Likely versus the Bills, that's just, a huge, huge difference.
All right. 2-4-4-2. Like I said, pretty balanced here. And I don't think there's anything we need to do at quarterback. I don't know if this is like a Brenton Strange, Juwan Johnson range for us. So I'll filter to running back and wide receiver. McMillan, Jennings, Jonah Coleman, Charbonnet, Flournoy, Bigsby. Pretty gross range, to be honest here. So if there's any favorites, now's the time to go and get them.
Yeah, I like Bigsby. Oh, I was going to say, if Willis somehow fell all the way, I was going to say he would be semi-interesting. I like Bigsby. I like Flournoy. I like Debo. I like Stribling, although that's a bit early for him.
What about Tre Harris with the Herbert stuff? Is that?
I didn't notice that. That's a good call. What's his ADP? 166. Yeah, he's not coming back.
I have it sorted by ADP, right? I'm Debo in the queue. Are you good with Debo as the first one?
Yeah, let's do Tre Harris if you can get it in, but Debo's fine.
Almost. I almost had the switch in.
Yeah, all good. I think we can just double tap with wide receiver here, I think.
Yeah.
I like defaulting to the stack. That'd be my choice. Your call though.
Yeah, Tre Harris is one of those guys. I'm really only taking him on Herbert teams. And I also do think, we're playing this as Ladd being the guy. But we could get into the thing. Are we being overly precise with the QJ stuff again? But I like the idea of this is a bet on the QJ stuff being too frothy, and Tre Harris actually plays more than the market is assuming.
Yeah. Tre Harris, I don't know, there wasn't that much promising in his year one profile to me looking back on it, but he did get some more playing time towards the end of the year, and he was a really prolific producer his senior year of college, or his final year of college. I'm not sure if it was his senior year. So he's kind of been a close my eyes and bet on the year two breakout type of profile on the right roster. So I guess the only question is I was thinking maybe the structural error there is we might get boxed out of a fifth running back we like, but I think there'll be someone coming back that will be okay.
And I would say with this base, Barkley, Walker start, Price in the early six, and then Mitchell. I think we're primed to have skipped that range, or And you mentioned Bigsby. We had Barkley, so I don't even know if we would have wanted that.
Oh yeah, good call.
So I think we were okay. The one interesting guy, I never take him, but it's on a Bo Nix double stack team. Do you take Jonah Coleman there?
Yeah, I've been pretty out on Coleman. To me, when we have these day three running backs that just we have no idea if they're going to have a role, I just think it's too much of a projection to take them in this range at this point. I get if this was a FFPC team where we could cut Jonah Coleman, 100% sign me up. But it kind of reminds me of like the Kamani Vidal rookie year pick, which to be fair, I was in on, and that failed miserably. So I wanted to see like a little bit more from Coleman before I draft him. He's been pretty off my board.
Uh-oh. I'm reading the chat. Do you have your Canada Goose jacket nearby? Because I feel us getting pulled into a Kohler vortex right now as we speak. Oh my God, it's getting chilly out there. Hi, batten down the hatches. There's a Kohler bear coming for us. These Kohler heads, man.
Oh my God. I blame Pat and Sacrilegious for this Kohler stuff.
I blame them to start, but then this dude Daniel Popper's coming out here writing a daily love letter to Charlie Kohler as well, just emboldening them with this take, and we're never going to be able to escape the Kohler vortex.
I know. It's I mean, I guess if you like Will Dissly as the upside case for your late round tight end, then you can take Charlie Kohler. No one's going to stop you.
Always remember that one game against the Cardinals, who have been the biggest tight end funnel in the past 10 years, where he had like 12 targets against them. You cannot take that away from Will Dissly.
No.
What do you, dude? I grabbed Bryce Young at this price in my first draft. I mean, 158 ADP. He does finally go.
I would have taken him. Yeah.
This kind of looks like a decent spot for a third tight end. There's also Jeremy Bernard, Ridley, Judy Cup, all the ETR ass plays. Running back, you're looking at Ray Davis, Katron Allen. What do you think?
I like Barner, a tight end.
Oh shit. I didn't get it. Barner was buried. We got Bernard. You want to do
Bernard? Barner's buried in the ETR ranks, huh? He's Yeah. No, Bernard was gonna be one of the wide receivers that I like there too. So this is good.
Do you want to do AJ Barner here though? With the second one?
Let's do Barner. Let's do Barner.
Okay. Hey, chat. I mean, nothing would be more leg up than taking Kohler as your tight end 4. So let's keep the light on for that here as Shady drums up the Kohler Express.
Man.
Hey, look, you guys, what happened to Pete's Nimble's fingers? You know, I've been pretty dialed in. I missed this one here. Honestly, I'm going to go ahead and throw ETR under the bus because I was like looking for the tight ends and he wasn't even on the screen based on the rank.
I know that I think they have done the Seattle projections podcast series already. So I'll have to go back on the Barner stuff, but I don't know. For Barner for me is just like, and people can totally not trust my ability to watch film, but I think he's just like a really good player. Year 3 tight end with like good enough peripheral stats in year 1 and year 2. Nothing like that really makes him pop. But I think he's just like a talented guy that is going to get more involved in the offense this season. Part of me, like why I'm really into Shaheed and like a little bit less so Barner, is like, I think the JSN 40% target share games, like I just think opponents are going to be ready for that this year. I still think JSN is an awesome pick. Not saying he's a bad top 6 pick, but like it's rare that you see that insane of target shares, and it's even rare that you see that repeated season over season. And I think like it's just going to be a little bit more spread out to the Shaheeds, the Barners this year. So I'm kind of in on the Seattle peripheral pass catchers this season.
Yeah, no, and there were certainly weeks too where we saw that play out. It was kind of like Dr. Jekyll and Hyde, where we almost got roped in. I can't even remember the exact week, but like Barner just went nuts, and you're like, holy cow! Like, can we get more of this? And then they would just find other ways to win. I wonder if there is part of it too with kind of like the Rashid Shaheed thesis, where it's like they want to think about their offense a little differently this year without Kenneth Walker. Who knows? Maybe Price does stumble a little bit. Obviously, that thesis doesn't play well on this specific team. But if they do throw more and Shaheed and Barner are more involved in the passing game, you can see real ceiling for them within this offense. Yeah.
I agree. I just think it's like regression to some degree, I think has to come to JSN's target share. And I think the pass volume, I think also is likely to go up just with how dominant that defense was last year. Like those things are less likely to repeat. So Yeah, so I guess we're looking at here, ideally a 5th running back if we find someone we like enough to take.
Yeah, we're at a 2-4-7-3. It is probably running back and wide receiver.
Yeah.
We have the de facto. Do you put Pat Bryant triple on with Bo Nix? That's always the question.
Yeah. I would put him in the queue. Let's put Bryant in the queue. I like Bateman here as well. As another guy I'd throw in there. Running backs.
Well, we do have, as far as week 17, we obviously have Kenneth Walker opposite Chargers. I've been doing a little Tyquan Thornton. He could be in the mix here. Denver, it's New England. If you think Booty's still going to be on the team. But yeah, I'm going to put Brian at the top of the queue. Giddens, James, Black, Ty Johnson, P. Ryan, Mike Washington. I mean, it is rough, man.
Yeah. Holani's gone, I guess. I was actually thinking doubling up Seattle isn't terrible.
No, he is here. I actually don't hate that thought.
I kind of like it just to like give us some early season production in the case that Price is a slow starter. I think doubling up is fine with the Seattle guys here.
I don't mind that at all. And I was actually talking through that with Dank because we had a spot where we drafted a Bijan Jeremiyah Love team, and then we're on the clock and it's like, we need running backs. The best available, of course, is Brian Robinson and Tyler Algier. And we're kind of working through, the Brian Robinson behind Bijan. It's like, how does this work out without a Bijan injury? At least with the Algier, the phrase I always use is, could you get the passing of the baton moment? I see that pretty clearly with a Price and Olani. If all the reporting is true that Olani is going to be that guy to start the season, it could be rough sailing for Price. If you could get those 8-9 points a game while Price heats up, I think this doesn't feel like a handcuff situation so much as, being able to get those production at different points in the season.
Yeah, agreed. And I also think like the handcuff thing, like the people who doing the Sims could say this is true better than I could, but I've always thought there is something to the like 2 players that are inversely correlated, but on the same roster actually being like a benefit in a best ball format. Like when Jadarian Price is a 0 because of injury, it's probably best that you have George Holani on your roster as opposed to having some other random handcuff, say, I don't know, Jordan James. Because a lot of these times to like advance out of these pods, you're really just looking for like 10, 12, 14 points from your flex player, from your RB2. So I think there is some piece of that where like the handcuff element in this type of best ball tournament like has some value. But it's, I guess we haven't really seen like examples of like people who have won these big best ball tournaments. It's never been the case where they've handcuffed the running backs and that's worked out. But I do think it's something that could provide a benefit.
All right, dude, this team is in the books, 2-5-8-3. Some of the picks late, were a little tricky. And I know we were kind of paralyzed around the 13-14 picks, but man, I like this squad.
Yeah.
Barkley, Walker up top. You just take the running backs, come back with McConkey and Waddle. I think both guys that could outperform their draft costs this year. Get a high upside rookie with Tyson and Price there at the 5-6 turn. Come back, get the Herbert stack, then go all in on Denver with Sutton and Nix. I kind of twist your arm a little bit into a Kittle share at 109. Keaton Mitchell, the missile as part of the Chargers bet. Kincaid there, our second tight end. Then we start rounding out the wide receivers. Debo, hoping for some free agent CLV. Tre Harris with Herbert. Jeremy Bernard, because it's always Jeremy Bernard. Someone in the chat said, don't let Sam bully you on Pittsburgh players this draft. Look, I willingly take Jeremy Bernard in every draft. You can't blame that on him. We do find our way to AJ Barner despite a misclick by me initially. Pat Bryant, a guy Sam and I will draft just by himself, much less when we have Bo Nix. And then, of course, George Holani, as we talked through the running back dynamics. How do you think we did here?
I like this team a lot. It's 2 pretty heavily stacked teams in the Broncos and Chargers. And then I think a bit of a bet on Seattle as well with the running backs and AJ Barner. So, yeah, put all of our eggs in a couple of baskets. But I think that's oftentimes what you're trying to do in best ball is get a couple things right. And hopefully they can drag the rest of the team forward if those offenses overperform. And I think, just structurally very, very solid as well. I think whenever I'm drafting from the back half of the board and you get those 2 running backs early, it is just so easy to make the rest of the draft work. So having that Barkley and Walker thing at the start, I think made this team come together.
I was thinking about this.
I saw this Hayden tweet. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, we should talk about it. He goes, Hayden says, not a great explanation for Bo Nix being QB9 in fantasy points per game in 2024. That was his rookie year. QB9 in fantasy points per game in 2025. They add Jalen Waddle, and now he's QB14 for 2026 ADP. And man, like, and again, this is just, you know, a little bit of, you know, anecdotal stuff here. But man, like when we played the Battle Royale stuff this past season, like Bo Nix had like truly week winning scores and showcased a ceiling that only a few of these guys, like outside of the Jaden Daniels and Josh Allens, have. And then you give him this weapon. It is really exciting. Like everything's there. Like you don't really have to like stretch. It's not wish casting. It's like he's already showcased the ceiling, and now let's give him his first legit wide receiver.
I know. I don't know what it is with Bo Nix. Like I think part of it is people remember him for who he was in college and was just kind of like a very boring, somewhat underachieving college quarterback who was around for a while. So I think people are less excited about, you know, the year 3 breakout in the same way they are excited about other young quarterbacks. So I think, yeah, I've been taking Nix this year. I think I'm kind of capitalizing on that lack of enthusiasm for him, because I think the Waddle thing is just a perfect fit in this offense. They've really been kind of missing a separator, guy who can win downfield to complement the sort of clasher red zone threat in Cortland Sutton. They tried to make all these other guys work. Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, haven't really get it done. And I think there's ways that Waddle can really open up this entire offense this year.
Yeah, I mean, the chat bringing up a good point of like trying to figure out why has this happened, and it's probably this residual anchoring based on the ankle injury fear. Peyton telling everyone his ankle is cooked. I always remember because I went to that game against the Bills, and you know the Broncos win, and you know you're at the bar after, and all of a sudden like a hush goes through the crowd as everyone's checking, and they just heard Bo Nix is out for the rest of the season as they head to the AFC Championship game. But I don't know. Everything I've heard as far as health seems like full steam ahead. I haven't seen a single concerning report about Bo Nix. And again, going back to the reading between the lines, both Mahomes and Nix, the NFL schedules Broncos Denver Monday Night Football opener to kick the season off. Are they going to schedule a game where you're not going to have those two playing against each other? I've kind of always, and then we get back to, well, is he going to be fully healthy? Is he going to run as much? But this actually gives you a little bit more room for error, even if he isn't rushing as much at the beginning of the season. Well, now we have a really good 3 wide receiver set for him to use.
Yeah. And I haven't heard anything on that as earning reports by now. So yeah, maybe like an under-discussed injury. Like it's not being talked about at all in the same way that all these other guys, the running backs, Skattebo, Judkins, et cetera, are being talked about. But I kind of think it's a situation where no news is good news with Nix.
Yeah, man. I like this build too. I think you and I a lot of times draft the 3 quarterback teams, and yet this one just broke perfectly to get Herbert and Nix correlated, but both at value. We didn't even really have to force it. Yeah.
And what I do like, I think like this is a total borderline case with Herbert Nix. You don't need to force a 3 quarterback. I'd say like more than 50% of the time with these 2 guys, I'm still probably getting a 3rd, but it's close. I do think like what's fun when you don't get 3 quarterbacks on this type of build is we stacked multiple pass catchers with the quarterback. And I think that gives you like I think part of the benefit of 3 quarterback is to get that like ping pong effect where your different stacks can go off in different weeks. We can still kind of get that with just the 2 quarterbacks because we played it with like Nix and Sutton and Waddle, Herbert with McConkey and Keaton and Tre Harris, right? So we have that sort of versatility built in with the 2 quarterback stack.
Yeah, it's funny too, because this is kind of similar to even the draft I just did with Dank, where we were on the other side of the board. And you see here, I pulled up the solver report, ADP value minus 39.3. This is a lot of times what happens when you're on one of the far ends of the board, and scooping the value is a lot easier to do in the middle. You kind of have to make selections that make sense for the team. And so you can see here, we were slightly ahead of ADP on all of our running backs and slightly ahead of ADP on a lot of our wide receiver selections as well. And yet I think I'm okay with that slight sacrifice for how heavily correlated this is around both the team bets and even the week 16, week 17 stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And that's always tricky when you're at the turn too. Like you often don't get a chance to get the big value. I found in general this year, Pete, I don't know how you feel. Like, I feel like last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, part of my edge was just like taking the guys who fall like 2 rounds, 3 rounds past ADP, just like randomly. I feel like this year that just doesn't happen as much as an underdog. It's very rare you get like the huge ADP values. So I've been kind of bummed in how it seems like drafters are more, I don't know, rigorous in taking ADP values compared to what they used to.
Yeah. And again, it's probably a byproduct of the drafters right now. The drafters in these kind of rooms.
Yeah.
I think in August, we'll get more go get your guys. We'll also get way more overreacting to news.
Yes.
Like as an example, like say a report came out today that's like, Diggs is talking with the Dolphins right now. And everyone just gets afraid and like Diggs falls to pick 160 in a draft. Like you'll get things like that happen that I feel like we just haven't had a ton of. But yeah, like you said, I think it's being on the turn too. It forces you to think less about value and more about like, what does this team actually need right now?
Yeah. Or you get the classic is like the training camp report where like there's some, 4th tier beat reporter who's like, oh, Jadarian Price is like down on the field. Like they're bringing out a stretcher. And then you find out like 2 hours later, he had cramps and he's going to be back in practice the next day. You'll get a lot of that too. So yeah, maybe I just need to be patient with getting those huge values.
What was the, I think thinking back on interesting decision points in this draft, I guess one of the interesting ones, and maybe not a huge factor on this, but like Jordan Tyson versus DJ Moore, where DJ Moore was the faller. I think ETR rank still even had Moore ahead of Tyson. I was with you. I like Tyson there, but that's another tough spot. It's like, do you take the DJ Moore value and you pick up, plus 4 to 5 spots, or do you reach for a guy you like a little bit more?
Yeah, that one for me, honestly, like I think in the last like 5 or 6 drafts I've done with you and Pat on stream, I've gotten DJ Moore like 3 times. So that was just like DJ Moore fatigue for me. I think like if I was doing a much higher volume of drafts and I didn't have that problem, I probably would just take more there. But I feel like I've taken him a lot recently for a player I don't really believe in. I just feel a bit better. Like I think, man, the upside, I get why like ETR has more ranked where he is. Like I think the upside case for him is quite strong in the Bills offense, weak target competition. But I just feel better about like Tyson's overall profile. But yeah, I agree. That was an interesting spot. We definitely could have gone a different direction there.
Yeah, we're obviously picking nits to an extent there, and I think it's just like the nice thing too with the Chargers in Denver is like when you do have some stack options of guys where I'm probably not taking that much Tre Harris and Pat Bryant now just by themselves, and yet with these two, it makes a ton of sense there. Yeah, I think this worked out. And I think, you had a decent amount of tight end options there when we took Barner, but with the Seattle thing, and again, just building out another team level bet. Someone in the chat mentioned too, part of the thesis with the Barner stuff for a while there was a little bit of tush push equity that they had him doing that. So maybe we get a little more of that this year. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I was looking that up the other day, I think on a stream with Pat. I think he had like 14 carries last season.
Really?
Yeah, let me
Wow.
It was either 10 or 14. Let me pull it up. Oh yeah, 10 carries for 14 yards is what it was. He had one touchdown on a tush push last year. So that's like a real thing for him. Like, will it really matter at the end of the day? Probably not, but like it's good to have a couple of touchdowns added onto his upside case for the season. So I don't expect them to go away from that this year, even with the new offensive coordinator. But we'll see. Overall, but overall, this was this was a fun team. I kind of like the depth at all the positions, which is fun. And I don't have a lot of Herbert either. It feels good to get a Herbert team into the portfolio. I've been missing out on him for whatever reason.
All of our teams that we draft start to like blur together. I was trying to find, this was the team we drafted 2 weeks ago where we started Cook Barkley from a similar spot over here. We did do Ladd. This one we did Allen with DJ Moore. We could have, Price was off the board in this one. So we did Rome, Kraft. So we were kind of in a similar spot, but got funneled to a pretty different build overall. We did Holani like there as well.
Holani. We're stacking up Holani.
Yeah,
that's funny. But yeah, not a lot of duplicates, even though it's out of the same spot. So that's good.
Anything else like on your drafting wish list right now? You know, I mentioned, you know, a couple guys like, you know, trying to get some more George Kittle right now. Is there any guys where you do feel like their price is going to rise that you're trying to pack some bags with?
Yeah, I've been to repeat a player I've said earlier. I've been really heavy on Rashid Shaheed, and I think he's been kind of steadily rising. I think we're gonna like a big thing for him, right, will be preseason snaps data if he's ahead of Cooper Kupp in 2 wide receiver sets, which I think at his current ADP, people are like hesitant about that or worried about that. I think that'll send him up. And there's been just a pretty steady drumbeat with him about plans to have him more involved in the offense. So I could see him shooting up, you know, their 15, 20 picks. And then there's like some more speculative guys like Marshawn Lloyd and Jaden Blue, who I think like have potential to rise a ton, but also have potential to go to zero. So I've been hedging on those guys a little bit, but Lloyd has been the one over Blue that I've been leaning into, just with like a little bit of the Jacobs uncertainty tacking onto his upside case. So yeah, there's a couple names I mentioned there.
Before we let you go, Sam, can you move your head to one side or the other so people can see your bike? They were really disappointed not to be able to see
Bike's still there.
Yeah,
bike hasn't moved. But
what are these days you need to find a way to just like hang it from the ceiling somehow, just to keep everybody on their toes.
We'll get an Easter egg going at some point for the bike crew.
All right.
But I got to jump. Pete, thanks. This is fun. I'll see you back here next week.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, at Sherman_FFB. Follow Sam, and I assume you got. Are you back in the That's Fair saddle here this week with Pat as well?
Yep. Thursday with Pat, 5:30 Eastern. We'll be doing the That's Fair stream. So look forward to seeing anyone who's interested there. But otherwise, I'll see you next week, Pat. Or Pete.
Beautiful. Yeah, Pat and Pete. Peace. And without further ado, I will not forget, do not say a word, Pat. Do not say a word. Our next guest, welcoming to the stage.
Scuba Kerrane, Patty Millions, Peacock Pat Kerrane on the 1s and 2s.
Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
98 yards to the fucking house against Carolina in week 10.
All right, there he is. Pat, are you okay with getting welcome to the stage just to have to vamp and talk to the chat while I go to the bathroom here?
Yeah, I mean, what are we talking about? There's no topic. What is this? What am I on?
You got a topic?
I come on as a guest, and now I'm a contestant. What's going on?
All right,
here?
This is what you need to do while I'm gone for 45 seconds. I want you to list off all of the official nicknames and puns surrounding Charlie Kolar, just so everybody has it updated for their sheets.
All right, Kolar Vortex is probably the best one, because I think that can apply to Charlie Kolar. It can apply to the whole conundrum we find ourselves in, where we're talking about a guy who even the Bulls don't think is going to have some amazing season, but could have some utility in best ball compared to total zeros. The Kolar Express, which I think it would be fair to say leg up is on right now. What's the other one? Oh, the Kolar Bear, of course. Kolar Bear is, I'm a little torn on, because does that mean you're bearish? Are you a Kolar Bear? Is he the Kolar Bear? Unclear. Polar Bear's famously dangerous, so being a Kolar Bear could be quite bullish for Charlie Kolar. That one confuses me a little bit. Diet Kolar, Who is Diet Kolar? David Njoku, maybe? That could be bad. Kolar heads will prevail. That sounds like Coke. If you find yourself saying Kolar heads will prevail, you're not getting there.
That's just the rest of the show. It's just, I was thinking it is funny that, if you're to have Kolar bearish in there. And then also I was thinking polarized, like he is this now polarized figure here.
What about
polarized
bipolar?
Yeah.
Zach's been calling himself bipolar recently.
Yeah. Exactly. Kolar curious as well. All right, man. How are we doing here? Have you been ripping drafts over the weekend? How do you handle, because you are a slow draft maven, how do you handle it, like when you're out on the weekend and you guys are out, you're walking along the beach or whatever, and you realize I'm on the clock in 20, are you okay getting autoed? Are you just at peace with that? Because you live your life. So how are you pulling this off?
So this is what I did. So my parents are in town. We went to a little town called Julian, which is it's like an old mining town. Yeah, they got pies, the little apple crumble pie, quite delicious, cinnamon ice cream, the little barbecue. So I do the drafts before we leave. I get down to 0. Now I got 7 hours, almost 8 hours, and then you get on the road, you get up there, you have a nice little day, get the baby down for the nap, take out the computer, get the hotspot going, but get through all the drafts, and now you're good. I'm good till night. So you can do them in 3 windows as long as you got. This is where I think once you get up to above 400, and especially if you're anywhere near 500 slows, then it starts to become a little oppressive to try to get through it in 3 windows like that. But if you've got somewhere in the 300s or lower, you can get them all done. Again, this is an advantage of the sidekick. I'm just like in there going, just getting the picks in, doing a little bit, mini check in on some of the teams. I got a couple
how about this one?
Going, but
riddle me this: in less than 2 weeks, we're going to be in Austin for the ship chasing meetup. Saturday we'll be drafting. People have their laptops and stuff. Okay, that's doable. But then Sunday we're going to be out on the lake, on Lake Travis. Are you just making sure you've cleared the decks in the morning on the laptop before you head out to buy you enough time until you're back from the lake? Is that the play?
Yeah, it's 8 hours. I can do it. Now, I think Pacific time helps me out too, because the 3-hour overnight hits earlier for me as well. So we'll see. I guess what will be Central time in Austin. Yeah. So that might make it a little trickier. But yeah, I'm assuming we won't be on the boat for 8 hours, right?
Well,
it's not very best ball of us if we.
I'm going to keep you there and then say, Pat, how do you deal with this situation? You're going to be held hostage on the boat. How does Mr. Slow Draft handle this spot? You're jumping overboard and swimming to shore, trying to find a computer.
I think I just audit out of those. I'd go in on my phone, find the big dogs and the bulldogs, and anything slow puppy or lower. I think I just go with God on that.
That's
if I don't have the laptop.
All right, Pat, we are in a Best Ball Mania draft. This is my 91st BBM. How many BBMs are you at right now?
I think I've got 60-ish done.
Okay.
Not halfway there, but yeah.
All right, 109 here. We got the sidekick up. I will get the draft board here. And yeah, 109, we're typically looking at Justin Jefferson range here, CeeDee Lamb potentially. Is that what you've been doing?
Yeah, CeeDee Lamb, I've generally been taking. I have broken ties to Jefferson over Lamb at times, so I really like Jefferson, but I mean Taylor will probably be here as well. Oh no, never mind. Let's go.
It is Lamb and Jefferson here. Let's see what
these guys are very close to me.
Yeah,
I'm fine with either.
All right. I have way more Lamb than Jefferson. I do like Lamb more than Jefferson, but let's go ahead and maybe tilt the 12 versus 6% feels a little too lopsided.
Yeah, I wonder if Jefferson is going to flip Lamb because it has gotten really tight, and I thought maybe that was going to happen like maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. It hasn't, and so now I'm just taking Lamb typically because I'm a little underweight Lamb compared to Jefferson. But it's like one of those ones where I was just kind of taking Bijan and Gibbs roughly at my 101s and 102s, and then Gibbs flipped Bijan, and now I wish I had taken more Gibbs at the 102.
Right.
So I'm just trying to make sure, like, between those two guys, I want to end up pretty even on both.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to accomplish. Kenneth Walker here is pretty nice.
Yep. Was just letting the sidekick refresh. Hampton goes. So yeah, it's Walker, and then you're to the Chase Brown and Achane tier, but definitely good with Walker here.
Yeah, the guy I sometimes pull up is Bowers, just because I think he's such a potential smash. But Walker, I've come around on Walker a good amount with the pass catching potential for him in this offense.
Yeah, and it's nice to get him with Jefferson here. I mean, London gets pulled up, so that gets us, maybe a slightly more unique combo than normal, just with Walker being kind of now a fixture up here in the early second. Have you been getting much Chase Brown? I feel like he's like probably the least talked about guy in round 2, at least of all these running backs. I don't really know what to do with him fully.
Yeah, Chase Brown, I haven't been as in on Chase Brown historically, and I'm not super in on him now. We're not like hard fading Chase Brown or anything, but I believe I am underweight. Yeah, I'm at like 4% Brown, so I'm a bit underweight. He's not someone I'm really prioritizing, and I'm kind of more so taking him when he falls. And he is the type of guy where if it's like Chase Brown or Bowers, I'm like, yeah, I think I'm gonna take Brock Bowers. It's hard for me to see how like Chase Brown unlocks another element to his game. He's it's very kind of Kerrane-y, sort of Javonte-y. He's a better player, but he's not awesome. So it's just one of those profiles that I think you want to be a little bit price sensitive on. He fits better in best ball. He fits better in kind of this hyper fragile mode that I find myself in a decent amount. But Walker has like you think about Walker, Hampton, Barkley, they have, I think, much higher like kind of talent ceilings, and where like talent meets opportunity kind of thing. You're like, okay. I mean, we've obviously seen it with Barkley several times. Hampton could be in an awesome offense, second-year player. Walker's explosive, catches the ball better basically every year of his career. Now joins the Chiefs. I don't know, like it's kind of status quo stuff with Chase Brown, who's a good player, but he's not an elite talent.
Yep. So we start Jefferson, Walker here. I think the thing that's fascinating about Brown, right, is like we all have that year where we were targeting him, the Zach Moss year. He dusts him. He's like a huge hit relative to cost. And then he jumps in that, and Sean's talked about this over the years, the kind of unheralded prospects that smash that then jump up into a really expensive range. Those have been the guys that can really burn you, kind of chasing the new elevated cost. Then Brown kind of pays that off again the following year. And now it's like, okay, they're not drafting anyone. Are we really, we can make this pick here and then talk through that. ETN, an interesting one with him falling. You also have Kerrane, Javonte here. Do you want to play the ETN fall or just scoop him up here?
I'm okay playing it as a fall if you want.
Sure.
Because we might, yeah. He could easily come back.
That's been kind
intriguing to see what happens.
I kind of just like seeing where he goes. He went at like the 4-1 in my draft before. But yeah, just real quickly on the Brown thing as we take Kerrane there, of just being like, I feel like he keeps kind of passing the test, or beating the allegation, so to speak. And the Browns seem really confident, or the Bengals seem very confident in him. So I'm also like, can we throw out the prospect profile relative to these guys at this point? Like, is his NFL body of work enough to hang our hats on?
I mean, I think it's enough to hang your hat on from him being like the clear number one there. And there's really not much competition for Chase Brown. Like he's going to own that backfield. Samaje Perine or Taj Brooks isn't going to be that guy, but he's just not been like, over the last years, he's had 1.06, 1.09 yards per route run. So he's not been an efficient runner or receiver, excuse me. ETN does come back. Let's do it.
Yeah, man. I love being able to play
Great
for
call.
both of those guys there. But yeah, go back on this and we'll touch on it after.
Yeah, so he's not been efficient as, you know, a receiver in an offense where you would expect that to be like, you know, easy enough if he had that ability. And he's a good rusher. He's not really like, it's very kind of like Kerrane, where it's like, you know, he's got the ability to have like some efficient kind of chunk gains, but he doesn't have like that kind of top end explosiveness.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a volume based profile, which I think with a guy who's like not amazing, you know, is a little bit more fragile. And, you know, it's Josh Jacobs-y in a way, which Jacobs kind of keeps paying off. We've tried to fade Jacobs, sometimes successfully, sometimes not successfully over the years. And he's younger, so you do have that. But it's one of those things where there is a point at which that running back profile becomes dangerous just on its own. Like, even if you can't identify why this player would see less volume, or, you know, like who would take it, it's just like those types of guys can flame out like really hard for the price. And it's not like they produce zero, but it's like you're getting like 13, 14 PPR points per game in the early second round. That sucks. And the opportunity cost is, you know, really high at running back, or at running back, but also tight end, wide receiver. And so kind of a classic silent killer downside profile to me, and hard to see, like, how does he have the legendary ceiling when he hasn't shown the receiving, he hasn't shown the breakaway. He could maybe just score an ungodly amount of touchdowns, but the receiving weapons are so strong there that and Chase is like so good after the catch and all of that. It's like a little bit tougher for me to see them just like handing it to Chase Brown, you know, 3 times inside the 5 every time they get down there. So it's not that I'm completely out, but it is. I mean, I will say, like, in the main event, I don't expect to be really taking Chase Brown. It is more of a best ball play, and I'm underweight in best ball.
Yeah, I don't envision us getting him a ton there. We did go with Kerrane and ETN, and we see kind of a big run on running backs that hasn't necessarily been the norm at this point in the draft. So we do have options here. You know, DJ Moore, Christian Watson, Carnell Tate. Sidekick likes Tate. Lamar here as well. What do you think?
I like Tate too, and then we potentially get another receiver, or maybe Tyler Warren, or potentially Daniels coming back. But I think Tate is the priority there for me.
Talk to me about Tate over Watson. I don't think that's a click that I've made yet. Why should we take Tate over him?
I think when you think about the end of the season and what Tate has the potential to be, is like the clear number one on an offense and a downfield threat, where I think Watson has the ability to be maybe like the 1A and a downfield threat. But in a lot of cases, I think he's like not really the one, because you have Kraft and Reed. He's not got a target share like commensurate with a true number one, is maybe a better way to put it, even if he's got like technically the highest target share of the Packers. Daniels seems good to me.
Yeah, I mean, I basically in this spot do exactly what the kick suggests here. I'm either grabbing Price as my 3rd or 4th running back, or I'm grabbing Daniels where it got super flat at wide receiver. So I'm good with Daniels here.
Yeah, so with Tate, it's like you have, you know, he was the 4th overall pick. He was I think an underrated prospect, really, given kind of the discourse around it being like a weak draft class, and like, would he really gone this high? Like, he would have gone ahead of Brian Thomas in the Brian Thomas draft. You know, I don't know if he would have flipped Roma Dunze or not. So maybe he's not, you know, top 10 in that class, but he's like a pretty damn good prospect and would have been drafted highly. And like, you just don't go 4th overall if you're not a good wide receiver prospect. So, you know, the upside for him in an offense like that has a Jefferson or a Chase or something, he'd be the number 2 there. You know, Jeremiah Smith was the number 1 over him at Ohio State, but Smith's like kind of looking like the second coming of Julio Jones. Like I don't think that's a real negative. And he had a breakout 30% dominator rating last year alongside him. So I think the upside for him in this situation is potentially limited by Cam Ward if Cam Ward can't like sustain a true number one. But if he can, I think Tate has the ability to be like a true number one down the stretch, and you're getting a breakout, that pretty easily pays off that 5th round price tag. With Watson, I think there is upside for more, but his ADOT is so high. Are they going to change his role in the offense? I'm not sure they will.
Yeah, and I guess to kind of summarize, and I think I do agree that, Watson is probably a small hit or a small miss at this price, whereas Tate's either probably a big hit or a big miss. And so in best ball, like we could be drafting Tate middle of round 2 next year, and I don't think that would be crazy at all.
Exactly. I also think with Tate, you get some of the Watson. He could be a big miss. I think he could also be a small miss where you're like,
Tedoroya style.
Yeah, Tedoroya style. You get kind of a worse CJ or Christian Watson's type of profile. You wish you had Watson, but like now you're just hoping. But he does give you some big weeks, and now you're just like hoping the sequencing works out in that kind of like small best ball miss style. But yeah, I think the ceiling is pretty clearly higher on Tate, just given how he can, become a sort of a target dominant number one.
Jaden Daniels, Kenneth Walker, Kerrane, Travis Etienne, Jefferson, Tate back on the clock here. Looks like the kick likes Chuba, Godwin, Reed, Harvey also up here. Do you like Chuba or you want to go with a wide receiver?
I'm fine with Chuba, honestly. It's not the sexiest click, but we have him past ADP. It gives us the 4th running back. And now we can potentially be done if we want to. And then we probably get a receiver coming back that we like.
Yep. We add
or
Chuba
Mahomes,
there.
of course.
Relax. Also, sidekick, relax here. Was it last week we got the double with Kelsey, Bryce, and Mahomes? Yeah. I did Trevor Lawrence on naked Trevor Lawrence around this spot in my draft this morning and built out the back stack there with him. I enjoyed that as well. Did you guys get a little higher on Godwin? I feel like I don't remember seeing Godwin up here.
A little, like I think a couple weeks ago, we got a little bit higher.
Okay. Yeah. I like Godwin here a lot as our wide receiver 3. Do you know what factored into the slight bump in Godwin for you guys?
I'm sorry. So I think basically, I'm trying to remember exactly what we adjusted.
It's all good.
Yeah, there was some concern about what Godwin's role was going to be, down the stretch, and I think we were potentially being a bit overly pessimistic on that. So we brought up that part of it, I believe. But with Godwin, you had him fall off last year, so you have the potential for him to bounce back. But it's sort of like, well, they also drafted Ted Hurst. They've got Jalen McMillan. Like, how bad? And then Ibuka potentially breaking out in his second year. So how bad could that get if Godwin falls off a little bit more? And essentially dialing that back a little bit is what I believe we did.
Yeah, and to me, it seemed like a lot of the hesitation with Godwin from people was like less about his role and more just like, is he going to be fully healthy at this age? He missed the 5 games with the fibula injury, and I think people were a little spooked of like, does he have any juice here? But I think even as like an over the field volume merchant in an offense that's going to throw the ball a ton, like I think that plays at this cost.
Yeah. I mean, if he's an over the field volume merchant, we're feeling great at this cost. My concern is that the volume merchant is Ibuka and right. And then Godwin is kind of, he's okay in the beginning of the season, but he's actually he's sort of falling off. And we're talking about him next year in drafts going where Jerry Jeudy and Calvin Ridley are. Like that's the downside with Godwin, I think. But the upside is he's going like here again. I think, it's like, I think that's sort of the upside where maybe he goes a little higher, but he's going to be an older receiver. So you're like, yeah. So it is a little bit of a small hit type of profile. I think it's small hit, big miss, which is why we're not going to have a ton of Godwin. But in this build, that small hit could be quite helpful as a wide receiver 3 with a rookie wide receiver 2. So yeah, you're seeing him more in this type of build, which I think is good, because there's like a clear utility to that small hit. Obviously, I'm
fan and bet.
Yeah,
at 105. Yeah, and I guess I would say maybe the upside that I would see too is, again, let's assume full health, but let's say that Igbuka, his late season splits post injury are more like indicative of where he's at, and he had sun run touchdowns, and that like Godwin becomes the engine of the passing offense with Evans gone, and like Igbuka's in a similar role. Like I could see scenarios like that because we have. Seen
that would be an absolute smash where he does have some upside for that. Like I think Cortland Sutton went just after, and I think Sutton is a lot thinner. Kyler is annoying.
Yeah, Kyler with Jefferson would have been nice. So you want to do the Sanderson with Jayden Daniels?
I think so, or pulling up Concepcion would be the other move. Who's like
let's pull up Concepcion, just because I think feeling a little bit, we could feel kind of squeezed at wide receiver with only 3 coming back, and Concepcion gives us a little extra juice.
This is the one. This is like the last time we talked about Concepcion. I was like, we could change some stuff, and then I was like, let's Pat.
Let's keep his ADP in check.
No, not his ADP, but just like the potential for me to get out over my skis on a rookie I like, which I've never done before, but I was considering doing for the first time here. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty bullish on Concepcion, so I'm going to end up a bit higher on him. He's one of the few guys on my IKBing too, pretty regularly now.
Yeah, pick 112 here. I mean, again, just thinking through the prices, and I know you guys are high on Lemon too, but just pricing these first round guys out: Lemon 76, Casey Concepcion 112, and Cooper 143. I mean, I feel like the biggest dilemma with Concepcion and Cooper, it's just this idea of, man, like all the Jets, all the Browns kind of isolated look like good values in a vacuum. We take Fannin, SYTYCT Price looks nice. There's just that it's like, how many of these do you want to stack on one team? That's what people were pushing back on our main event team, where we were loaded up on, good values on the Titans, Jets, and Browns.
Right. And it's like, how could that possibly burn you? You do think about, in retrospect, when that doesn't work, it looks really dumb. But there always are teams that surprise in terms of their ability to produce fantasy value. Do we need them to be good? Not necessarily. We just can't have the floor can't fall out, which the Jets do concern me on for sure, because they were just such cowards last year. Just trying to go home. It's like their games are ending at like 2:45 Eastern.
Yeah.
They're just like, we're good.
I know.
We're going to go get brunch.
Especially for these teams that that's why the Cam Ward stuff, right? Where it's like, they're going to try to make this work. Like they don't want to throw in the towel on Cam Ward yet. I mean, the Jets and the Browns, they are looking for their quarterbacks for the future. You could be really worried about like true tank scenarios where they are just trying to get us to the 2027 draft. Those spots could be concerning for sure. About to pick here, we got the 1 quarterback, 4 running backs, 4 wide receivers, 1 tight end. Kincaid, who Sam and I took in our previous draft, at the top here. He goes, so we're looking at like Shakir, Andrews, C-Rod.
Probably Shakir, I'm good with Shakir. Shakir is one of my highest drafted players at this point. He just sits down here in this tier that I don't think he's in. I think he's above. I think he's in the tier that, he's in the same tier as Wandale and Dobbs and Myers to me, but he goes the latest of those guys pretty much every single time. So I'm just starting to get a big bag of Shakir, and I'm not worried about no one is threatening him for his role. Like, he clearly has that role locked down. They're like trying to talk up Keon Coleman and stuff. Like, I'm really impressed with Keon Coleman these days. He's safe. Like Shakir's very safe. for Keaton Mitchell, by the way, was top of the sidekick there.
I
thought it
know.
was a
I
real
couldn't
fun
believe
click.
that there for a second.
Yeah.
I was wondering about quarterback here, and it does look like us grabbing Malik Willis makes some sense here.
My rule of thumb is if the sidekick thinks you should take Malik Willis, it's time to take quarterback.
Because it's generally more bearish on him.
We're not super high on Willis, so if
Yeah.
If Willis is popping up, I'm listening.
Did you say Will listening?
Ooh,
I didn't. I couldn't
I
tell.
did, maybe I
Okay.
did by accident, but
I was like, was
I
that
didn't mean to.
intentional?
it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, Shakir does pair well with a team like this, right? Where we have Tate, we have Casey Concepcion. As excited as we are for those guys, it could be a little bumpy at the start. Shakir gives us a more floor there with targets in the same way we're kind of hoping for it with Godwin. Do you think with the sidekicks suggesting Willis, you do have Stroud, Ward, Darnold on the board. For a moment there, Darnold was ahead of him. Do you think it is just saying like, hey, the stacking dynamics could be a little trickier here with Darnold? Just lock up Willis as a guy you don't have to worry about, or is there maybe more going on there under the hood?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're getting is Willis gives you what you need without any kind of stacking dynamics. And so he was probably simming there like a bit better than he sometimes does would be. And then you have him as the ADP faller. So it's like a good time to get a share of Willis is basically how I think it was. Like, hey, he's simming pretty well. You need a quarterback too. You don't have any other guys who really jump out stacking wise. Like this isn't clearly a Stroud team or clearly a Darnold team. So you could try to backstack it if you want, but Willis is a guy we don't have a ton of, but he's not like completely dead to matter. So finding those spots where the guy who isn't always the best click does pop up is the way we wanted this to work. So I just think it's a good time to tackle on Willis. Like I'm at 2% on, I don't have a ton of, but it's not like he is a zero him out, not worth clicking type of guy.
Yep. So Jefferson, our first pick, then we go 3 running backs, Kenneth Walker, Kyron Williams, Travis Etienne, a little there, Carnell Tate over Christian Watson. We then grab Jayden Daniels in the 6th, Chuba Hubbard in the 7th, Godwin in the 8th, the Fannin bet in the 9th, come back with 2 wide receivers, Casey Concepcion and Shakir, and then get our QB2 Malik Willis in the 12th. That leaves us with a 2-4-5-1 build. We do see some tight ends coming off the board here. Chig, Strange, Gadsden, Henry, and we're about to be on the clock here in a couple of picks. Sidekick like in Juwan Johnson. We could do another Brown with Denzel Boston, Trey Tucker, some other options here.
Yeah, and Kerrane says, I just pronounce it Kerrane because I'm Kerrane. I like Juwan here. Second Saint.
Yeah.
Already bet on that offense. Saying, what are they going to do? Bench Willis. He feels like 2025 Justin Fields. I talked with Sam about this on That's Fair last Thursday. And I was very strongly the like Willis has serious bench risk guy, not the pro Willis guy. So I feel like I fully see the downside with Willis, but like I said, I mean, I don't think he is undraftable in the 12th round. He's just risky.
Yep.
So, there are teams where you're like, yeah, in this world, Malik Willis either doesn't get benched or get benched so late that it doesn't really matter. And we have Jayden Daniels and he ends up carrying the team anyway.
All right. 1 pick away, 2-4-5-2 here. Denzel Boston top, Debo here as well. Do we rip it in on 3 Browns pass catchers here?
Let's rip it in on the Browns, man. We got the Russian quarterbacks covered. We don't really need to guess on their quarterback. The other guy, if you're trying to get that correlation going, Antonio Williams is down there.
Right.
But, dude, he's been falling. I
Yeah.
got him in the late 17th yesterday. He's in the 200s sometimes now. I'm not sure exactly why. I guess maybe it makes sense. It feels a little
The
delayed
Diggs
reaction.
factor, I think.
Yes. Is that what it is? Okay.
I think
thought,
so.
What would make more sense to me is that like he hasn't stood out relative to Treylon Burks and Luke McCaffrey and De'Ami Brown,
Yeah.
which I do think is pretty concerning. But is like completely free, tack him on and hope he does stand out by December, I think seems fine.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I've been patient with him. I think definitely makes sense, even on Daniel's teams. Copy paste Lade wants to know, what does Leg Up say about the Browns quarterback and Falcons? Obviously, that could be a point of conversation for us on a triple Browns pass catcher team. Have you been getting any of those via the Sims?
Michael Penix, you get, especially in 20 rounds, you might get him as like a last round pick, kind of QB3, tack him on. I think he is a little bit more interesting in Atlanta. I just don't believe in Tua without Mike McDaniel. I think it could get pretty gross. And, Penix, they haven't seen a ton from Penix. I think it would make sense for them to get a better look at Michael Penix at some point this year. And I have more faith in him of the two. It's not like a guy I'm trying to take a ton of, though. And then the Browns guys, they're both going to play. It's probably not going to be, super consistently even interesting. There's going to be some pain. Like you're hoping one of them kind of goes Jameis. But I guess like with this, like I just don't need to tie myself to one of these guys. Like I could be like, oh, it could be Watson coming. The reason this team works out is because Watson recaptures some of his old Texans form, and it's like, nope. The reason was that Shador actually broke out. Like I'd like to live with both outs intact rather than tying myself to one of them.
Well, it is like we've done this move in DFS, right? Playing DraftKings on a week. You think back to some of those quarterbacks where it'd be like a Kirk Cousins thing where like the ceiling just wasn't quite there, but you'd have like values on the Vikings pass
100%.
catchers. And you do like, it's like in this scenario, it's like Casey Concepcion's 3,600, Denzel Boston's 3,200, Fannon's like 4,100 at the tight end position. But you say like, I'm not going to play Shadur Sanders. Like his projection 17, Malik Willis's ceiling projection on ETR is like 28.4.
Yeah.
I'm going to play him naked, chase those rushing TDs, but still scoop up the value and the correlated elements of the Browns passing game.
That's perfectly put. Yeah. You can stack without the quarterback, even in best ball.
Looks like we did lose Antonio Williams here. It looks like we might flip to Stribling Algier if we want a fifth running back. Dulcich for the stack at tight end. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm good with Stribling or Dulcich.
All right. Yeah, let's do Stribling here. We didn't get to talk about Juwan a little bit. You guys have been high on him. I definitely had a come to Jesus moment with him. I was looking, Dwayne put out some awesome research for his What Matters for Tight Ends piece and was looking, and it was the first time in his series that just previous season fantasy points per game didn't have the highest correlation with next season points per game. And for the tight ends, it was receiving yards per game at a 0.67 correlation. And it makes sense, right? Because touchdowns swing those scoring and are the most volatile things. So receiving yards are like the best proxy. And lo and behold, number 4 on the season last year in receiving yards per game, Juwan Johnson there with 889 yards. And I know you guys have been talking about him. You guys got me warmed up to him specifically in the FFPC format, but it's hard not to look at Juwan Johnson at these prices and not think of him as a nice value.
He's been, I'm at 17%, Juwan Johnson. I've been taking a ton of them. I think he's a very, it's not the most exciting click. They add Tyson there. So that's going to, Dulcich goes. So
it's funny though. The kick doesn't seem to mind that though. Still liking like Helm, Otten, and Freiermuth over him even before he went. You want to do Helm here?
I like Helm a lot. We're already betting on the Titans.
Yeah.
And again, you're betting on the Titans in the same way you're betting on the Browns, where like they pass a lot. Maybe they don't have to be incredibly efficient. Yeah, what was I saying?
We were talking about Juwan, and you were saying you're
Juwan, yeah,
there,
yeah. I think with him, like, there's been some concern about Oscar Delp and that type of stuff. I think Delp is going to play more in 12 and stuff, and I just don't. I mean, I frankly don't have a lot of concern about Delp, full stop. But if he does play, more than I expect as a rookie, I think they might just be more in 12. And you're looking at Juwan Johnson basically playing over Devon Vele. as your third weapon. And, they feel confident with Tyson outside at that point. So that would be, one reason I think I'm a bit higher. I'm just not really concerned that Delp's going to like eat into Johnson's route participation. I do think that his target share will fall with Tyson there, but he's pretty cheap. He's on an offense that people are generally excited about. I'm not, I would say, quite as excited about playing it like through Shuck, for example, but I do see some of the appeal of the Saints. Kellen Moore is a sharp offensive mind and stuff. So yeah, he's a pretty cheap way to get some exposure to that offense, and a player who over multiple seasons has shown the ability to earn targets and produce yards. And when we were talking about in the main event, it's like, hey dude, like, what's kind of nice is guys who get targets at the tight end position. That's like a nice, predictable, steady diet that you can live off of. What if he does score touchdowns? What if Tyson, helps elevate this offense? What if ETN helps elevate this offense? And now this is a team that's just putting up more points every week. And now you have a tight end, didn't really score many touchdowns last year. And you actually get that as part of the upside for his 2026 production.
Well, isn't that the funniest thing? That was the same thing we did with Olave, right? Where it's 2 years ago, he scores 1 TD and it was like, well, he's getting targeted a lot, all those air yards, all that stuff. Oh, and then he scores 9 touchdowns. And it's like, when it all comes together and they're priced at their floor, it's priced at the assumption that the touchdowns never come. That gives you a lot of room to run.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns last year. He had 102 targets. Another guy we really like this year is Dalton Schultz. He had 3 touchdowns last year on 106 targets. So
that's another guy when I was looking at the receiving yards, which again, like I acknowledge is a very simple screener for this stuff, but he was the other one, Dalton Schultz, number 7 on the list, 836 yards last year, tight end 23. That wasn't a touchdown driven thing. Like this dude was involved in the offense.
Yeah. They haven't really had it anyone, they've added Tank Dell maybe back off of injury. So he's in position to, like he should be targeted pretty heavily again, and is even cheaper. I'm at 26% Dalton Schultz.
I believe that from seeing the kick for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's make these picks here. We are about to pick in the 17th round. We have 2 more picks, 2, 4, 7, 3 here. Brazel at the top. I drafted him on a Bryce Young team in my first draft this morning. Halani, who I've been drafting a decent bit. Who do you want to go with here?
I like Brazel. Brazel's another rookie receiver. I mean, we talked about the utility that Khalil Shakir provides, but also this running back build, which you have Chuba Hubbard, which obviously is not the most exciting click, as we talked about. You have Kyron Williams, and ETN and Walker are probably just like more. You hope those guys just have really strong seasons overall. But Chuba and Kyron, you could see like being at a little bit more like you hit the ground running with those guys, and then as the season goes, you're like, not getting so much flex points from these guys, as much as I was. But pairing those types of guys with rookie wide receivers is pretty cool. And then I was kind of hoping we could take George Halani here.
Yeah.
With the last pick, because I think he just helps reinforce that like overall build where it's like a running back to receiver baton handoff.
Yep. Yeah. Sam and I actually did a Price Halani team right before you came on. And yeah, I mean, Halani's kind of one of those last guys now here where I actually feel kind of good about what we're going to get. And you can get momentum in your favor as well, right? If the thesis is like, he has to be the guy, like week 1, week 2, that's what the team's telling us, but we know momentum can carry and he has a role the whole season. I thought them using him in the playoffs too, even when, Sharbs and Walker were healthy together at times, like that was pretty bullish for how the team views him. So I'm starting to get Halani pilled a bit.
Yeah. I think he's very much, to me, like when I think about him, I'm looking at, teams that could really use production early in the season, to either help with, a running back room that's maybe built around like, you got a Travion Henderson or, you got like a Jonathan Brooks and type of guy where you're like, yeah, maybe he's not like winning me, the original league, but he's potentially a playoff hammer and he's doing enough to pay off ADP. So it's like, who could be like neutral or slightly lower than expected advance rate running backs who like win me BBM. And Holani pairs well with those guys. And then of course he pairs well with the rookie wide receivers, which we have Concepcion, we have Boston, we have Stribling
and
we have
Brazel.
we have Tate. Yeah. We have 5 rookie wide receivers on this team. Like that's a tough build to advance, right? Like you're like, how do I advance this? We advance it with like Dusty Chuba, who hangs on a little longer than people thought. George Holani, Malik Willis. Like this team could be a Jayden Daniels solo quarterback team with like 3 crazy values at rookie wide receiver, and we're just like, yeah, we had the booster. The boosters fell off the rocket ship. They're gone. They didn't make it out of the Earth's orbit, but those being like Chuba and Holani. But here we are. We're in outer space with the absolutely nuking Casey Concepcion and Carnell Tate.
We're in outer space without our astronaut suits because we got naked Jayden Daniels and Malik Willis, our 5 running backs, Kenneth Walker, Kyron Williams, ETN, Chuba, and George Holani. The wide receivers, as we mentioned, tons of rookies here, but also Jefferson, Carnell Tate, Chris Godwin, Casey Concepcion, Shakir, Denzel Boston, Stribling, and Chris Brazel. And then a nice 3 tight end room, Bannon, Juwan Johnson, Gunnar Helm. This is a funky team, and yet I think all of the pieces make sense on how we got there.
Yeah, it's like I said, I mean, it's a team that kind of has players of very different archetypes that I think balance out pretty well. So we don't end up with any Daniels stacking. Okonkwo was in the mix for us. I forget where we went. We went maybe with Willis at that point. And then we didn't pull up Antonio Williams, which I'm increasingly fine not doing. If the room wants to give us him basically for free, happy to do that, but not someone I think you need to force it with. Okonkwo and McLaurin are really the only 2 guys that I feel any confidence in right there, and partly because they could sign someone. Debo might have been, the other. I doubt they bring him back, but I saw some like 49ers fan stuff of like, should we bring Debo back? He looks pretty good, actually.
I know. It seems like that's more and more a possibility at this point.
That'd be pretty fun.
I think one, if we wanted, one we could look back on, like, should we have taken Dulcich ahead of Stribling to get that with Willis and then been okay with the wide receiver option still there?
You could have, although, Jack Besh went, in that next round. So I feel okay about getting Stribling. To be honest, like Dulcich and Helm are pretty equivalent. And the sidekick preferred Helm to Dulcich straight up when they were both on the board. So it's like hard to feel like Dulcich is. I mean, the thing about the Dolphin, even with Willis, the Dolphins passing game just could not support very many weapons week to week. Like Willis really might be a play for the rushing yards, and then obviously he's got to pass enough, but like it doesn't mean he needs to pass consistently to a person. It could be quite spread out.
I mean, if it's not a play for the rushing yards, he should be going behind Geno Smith, right? Like that's what we're paying for.
But I just mean like if are we trying to tackle on Caleb Douglas or Chris Bell at the end, or are we just like we know what this bet is?
Yeah. So there it is, 2583, drafting a BBM team with Kerrane. You guys can get the sidekick over at legendaryupside.com. Anything else the people should know here, Pat?
Yeah, so actually there is. We just have soft launch now the kickstand. So that is available at Legendary Upside. I haven't sent out the email yet. So if you just type in, though, change that URL to Kickstand.
Oops. No, I spelled it wrong.
I think you spelled it wrong.
There we go. Kickstand.
All right. I guess I didn't. I thought I had that flag. If you, so the Kickstand, I'll give you the actual page here in a second. It's we have it live if you download the Leg Up Sidekick extension, so you get that on the Google Chrome store. You go to Install Sidekick on the site. You can get that there that's got the Firefox link, and then I'll send you the link to this page here, but you just use the same exact extension.
Okay.
And if you have the leg up sub, so just the base tier sub, then you'll have access to the kickstand, which has a number of the features that the Sidekick does. It does not have dynamic rankings, but it's got the notification sounds. It's got the tags for week 17. You know, if you already have that player's quarterback, that the other players on the team, all that kind of cool stuff. So it's got exposure. And so this is now just included in the leg up sub. So if you're already a leg up member, just go to install Sidekick at legendaryupside.com, get the Sidekick installed, and you'll have access to the kickstand. If you want the kickstand, just sign up for the leg up tier. There's still just 2 tiers, leg up and Sidekick, and we'll just detect which tier you have and give you the appropriate tool. So it's all just under the same extension. Should be super simple for people. And yeah, it's you know, you can upload your rankings as well. Like I tested it just with Jacob Sanderson's rankings in there. You can toggle back and forth between our rankings, a custom set that you upload just on the bottom of the Sidekick or the kickstand. There's a little gear. You click that, open a new tab. You upload your rankings there. And then you can also toggle with ADP. So it's just displaying a static list based on whatever you choose there. So, you know, it's just a little kickstand sidecar with rankings, but then you get all those tags. And then the notification sound is honestly, I think, not a small perk. I think that can be quite helpful for multitasking.
There you go. Get that now at legendaryupside.com. You can catch Pat on ADP chasing tomorrow, ship chasing on Wednesday as well. Make sure you guys check out, we did a main event draft last Wednesday. Very fun stream there. You can go and get your takes in on all the Titans, Browns, and Jets we drafted. Another great best ball breakfast in the books. Appreciate everybody watching. On your way out, make sure you guys are subscribed and hitting that like button. And yeah, a couple of the other announcements that I had made earlier. Don't forget, we're going to do the randomizers coming back on Thursday with the 3 So You Think You Can Tout finalists, which again, by the way, if you guys missed that episode, Mr. Pat Kerrane here, depending on which side my mirror is having Pat on, was a surprise guest judge along with Davis Maddock. If you guys like this show, if you like ship chasing, you'll enjoy some of the lore there, as well as Pat's thoughts on those finalists. Yeah.
When is the final going to be?
It's taking place now. I'm doing some after darks with them, the randomizer, and they behind the scenes, they're giving me their pitch on what their show is going to be. So that's going to be a big part of the finale we're working on.
Oh man. All right. Good luck.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
That's some tough
Thank
choices.
you, for sure. So yes, for everybody, for producer Mark, for Mark Dank filling in for Adam, for Sam, and for Pat, I'm Pete. We'll see you guys next time on Best Ball Breakfast. Peace.